Welcome to J is for Justice podcast. If live breaking news and following true crime is your thing, then please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you like what you see in my videos, please consider giving them a thumbs up. Hello, happy Monday. Welcome back to J is for Justice. I got my tinfoil hat, my tie-dye shirt, because we are going back to the frickin' 50s and 60s. Ah! Can we scream? Ah! Welcome in, everybody. Hit the like button. Good to see you, Scott H. Good to see you, Kelly Cal. AJ. Sweet dude Shibby, you got your tinfoil hat? Eclectic. Super Sailor, good to see you. Marcy, Hexy, and Flo are in the house, and Leo, good to see you guys. Happy Monday. What's happening? What's happening? Hey, Kathy. Welcome in, everybody. Make sure you're on live chat and hit the like button on your way in. Hey, Sarah Lee. I haven't seen you in a bit. I hope you're doing good. Good morning, Jen J. I know Scott H is here.
Fuck directly off.
Ski Utah's here too. Come on in, guys. Let's get cozy and comfy.
Ski Utah.
We are live. Hey, Nam. Hey, Belinda Buckner. Oh my gosh, thank you for the PayPal. Let me make sure here. If you got any messages, if you guys are going to send any J chats, Cooter chats, thank you, Belinda. Ready for today's stream. You do it best, Jay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm going to take my hat off, though, because we don't need it quite yet. But I wanted to set the scene. Thank you for the floating hearts. Ski Utah.
Ski Utah.
Thank you so much. Hey, Deb K. Good morning. Hey, Mississippi. Hope you guys are doing well and had a good weekend. Are you guys recovering? Too hot. I know it's too hot. It's so hot down here, guys. Today's stream, though, we're going to be talking about MKULTRA. We're going to be going over this hearing. And I also have some other clips I'm going to be showing you while we watch this. I've MK'd you. Hey, Penny. Penny, thank you for sending the doggos the hedgehog toy and the calming chews. Bella thanks you. She made it through the 4th of July. Okay, Leo. There was a lot of fires. I heard about that. Ours wasn't bad here down in Florida. Like, I heard fireworks, but it wasn't bad. Hey, Shotgun. Tin-foiled roof. Your dog's finally recovered. I know the dogs hate it. The veterans hate it. I'm glad it's over. Today we're going to be talking about this hearing, though, but let me tell you a little bit about MKULTRA. We've gone over this in several lives on the unabomber, Charles Manson, and we've always theorized that they were part of an experiment called MKUltra. It was a covert, illegal CIA human experimentation program that ran from 1953 to 1973. Holla, it ended in my birth year. It was designed to develop drugs and procedures for mind control and behavioral alteration. It utilized high doses of LSD, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and electroshock on unwitting subjects. The CIA launched the project at the height of the Cold War, fearing that the Soviet, Chinese, and North Korean intelligence agencies had developed mind control techniques. The operation officially encompassed 149 sub-projects carried out at more than 80 institutions, including universities, hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies. Researchers utilized substances like LSD, psilocybin, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's like magic mushrooms, and mescaline, often administering them to subjects without their knowledge or their consent. The goal was to break down individuals, extract information, and explore the possibility of complete behavior modification. Because the CIA feared public backlash, the agency destroyed the vast majority of the records in 1973. Shady, shady. However, some documents survived because they were stored in another spot and they found them. Psilocybin. Thank you. Psilocybin. We'll just say magic shrooms. Scott H., my money on it still continues. However, some of the documents survived, and the program's abuses were eventually exposed in the mid-70s through journalists and congressional hearings, such as the Church Committee. So they had a big hearing back in 77, but there's only transcripts. So the program was widely condemned as a major abuse of power and a severe violation of individual rights, prompting government investigations into illegal CIA activities. Hey, Debbie. Hey, Anders. Good to see you. They burned in the Nara 1973 fire. I don't know what that is, but wow. Whew. Okay. Thank you for sharing in Discord, Flobo. All right, so we're gonna start listening to this. It's an hour and a half long. I'm gonna put it on 1.25 for time, but I do have clips that I'm going to in the National Archives. Interesting. Linked says, I watched this on my own because of you, and it was amazing. I haven't seen it all. I've only seen clips, so let's do it. And I've got some things I'm going to throw in as they come up. So this was from June the 30th, 2026. The House Oversight Committee Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets held a hearing entitled Mind Control and Accountability, Uncovering the Truth of the CIA's MKULTRA project.
Force on declassification of federal secrets will come to order. Welcome, everyone. Without objection, the chair may declare a recess at any time. I recognize myself for the purpose of making an opening statement.
Is it too fast?
This hearing is about the crimes committed by the Central Intelligence Agency against the American citizens and the decades of secrecy used to conceal them. The American people deserve a...
I know, if you think about it, the last hearing on this was in 77. What is that, like 50 years ago or some shit?
complete and truthful record. The victims and their families deserve acknowledgement, and this Congress has a constitutional obligation to ensure that full declassification is not delayed any longer. Project MKULTRA was not a policy failure or an overzealous program that got out of hand. It was a deliberate, systematic governmental operation that subjected American citizens, prisoners, hospital patients, veterans, ordinary people to LSD, electroshock, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, psychological torture without their knowledge or consent.
So in our MKULTRA Manson episode, I think it was in the Manson series that Potato and I did, but we covered some stuff going on in Canada, like Shibby said. It wasn't just in the United States. We covered where they took women who had postpartum depression and they gave them these psychedelic drugs and literally drove them out of their minds. It was really, really sad. And there's interviews with the patients, and it was really scary and sad what they went through. But we're going to talk more about Ted Kaczynski. We're going to talk about Charles Manson and Timothy McVeigh possibly being in this program.
This went on for 20 years on American soil, funded by American taxpayer dollars and authorized by the very top of U.S. intelligence apparatus. And this program, when it did end, the men who ran it did not cooperate with investigators. They did not come forward. They committed another crime. They destroyed evidence. The documents this task force has reviewed are unambiguous.
And do you notice too, I don't mean to keep stopping, I'm sorry, I'll let it play for a bit, but do you ever notice that all this shit always comes out after people are long gone and they can't be held accountable? No accountability because they're all dead, you know? And then we find out the truth about all this stuff. It's crazy.
In January 1973, the director of the CIA, Richard Helms, prepared to leave office. He personally ordered the destruction of MKULTRA records. The CIA official document in writing states, over my stated objectives, the MKULTRA files were destroyed by the order of DCI Mr. Helms shortly before his departure from office. A separate internal account confirms that Helms telephoned Dr. Gottlieb directly and instructed him to destroy, quote, all files pertaining to drug research and associated activities.
And they have the audacity to destroy files when it was taxpayer dollars that funded this bullshit. But no, we're just gonna destroy the records and make it seem like it never happened. And they wonder why people don't have trust in the government.
Gottlieb compiled 4 people, spent an entire day tearing, burning down 152 files. Then Gottlieb had his personal papers destroyed by his secretary before he retired. The head of the CIA-owned Records Center protested the destruction in writing, but he was overruled. That is obstruction of justice. That is criminal destruction of federal records, and neither individuals were ever charged with a crime for it. Helms received a $2,000 fine for lying to Congress about an unrelated manner and collected his government pension until he died. Gottlieb retired in rural Virginia and wrote poetry. No one went to prison. No victim was ever formally compensated by the government for the harm that they caused. By 1975, the Church Committee and the Rockefeller Commission had already established through sworn testimony and the surviving 1963 Inspector General report that MKUltra existed and that the CIA had run a program of human experimentation on unwitting Americans. The scope and detail of what we know today is largely because of an accident. In 1977, an archivist diligently complying with a FOIA request discovered 7 boxes of MKUltra financial records that had been misfiled and escaped the bonfire. Those 7 boxes included the names of institutions, the name of subprojects, the researchers who participated, the specific operation that the CIA had funded, and without them, the vast majority of MKUltra would only be a rumor, just as Helms and Gottlieb intended. Those 7 boxes revealed that MKUltra comprised at least 149 subprojects, operated across more than 80 institutions, and involved 185 non-government researchers. They revealed that the CIA covertly contributed $375,000 to a hospital research wing, which was approved directly by DCI Alan Dulles, which Richard Helms concurrence, so the agency could use unwitting patients as experimental subjects in what their own documents called a hospital safe house. The CIA-owned Inspector General said in 1963 his classified report concluded that the program had exceeded the agency's legal chapter and covert testing on unwitting subjects placed the rights and interests of U.S. citizens in jeopardy. The program ran for a decade that we know of, and they ignored their own watchdog. Let me be clear what I believe that we are dealing with here. Administering drugs to people without their knowledge or consent, subjecting humans to psychological torture, and using prisoners and hospital patients as non-consenting research subjects. These are crimes against humanity. The Central Intelligence Agency committed them, and then the director of the CIA was ordering the destruction of evidence. Today, we will hear from 2 witnesses who have spent years unraveling the cover-up that our government ordered. Stephen Kinzer documented the life and crimes of Sidney Gottlieb in his book, Prisoner of Chief, and Tom O'Neill spent over 20 years investigating what the CIA buried and what they obscured that, in my mind, constitute some of the worst notorious crimes against humanity in the 20th century. Their persistence in the research in this hearing is possible simply because they are patriots. The American people deserve the complete record. The victims and their families deserve acknowledgement, accountability, and justice, and this Congress has a constitutional obligation to make sure that the CIA never does this again. With that, I'm going to be opening up first questions, and I'll hold my questions to the end to Representative Burleson.
I'm going to put up a poll,
but
you
before I
guys.
do pass
Be looking
it, I
for
did
it.
want to just note, a few weeks ago, we did receive reports. There's some back and forth regarding the CIA and ODNI pertaining to new MKUltra boxes that were discovered. Myself and Representative Burleson did go down to Langley. We did meet with the CIA, and the CIA is currently in the process of declassifying newly found documentation, although the documents, and I feel comfortable enough to share it here, pertain specifically to a forgery program that was being housed under MKUltra. So as soon as those...
A forgery program? What's that? Dude, what's a forgery program? Oh, fuck.
Files are released, we will be putting out notification with your help to also comb through some of the newly released documents, but I did want to give you a quick update. Without further ado, I would like to now recognize Representative Eric Burleson.
What did they forge? Dude, what is that all about? Hey, Harris.
Listen, first questions. Go ahead. Without objection, Representative Perry and Representative Higgins from Pennsylvania and Louisiana is waived on to the committee for the purpose of questioning the witnesses at today's subcommittee hearing. I need the opening statement. Yeah. And I'd like to now recognize Dr. Kinzer and the witnesses for the opening statements. I have to swear them in. Yep.
Hey, Linda.
Stephen Kinzer is a historian, journalist, and author of Poisoner-in-Chief, Sidney Gottlieb, and the CIA's Search for Mind Control. Tom O'Neill is an investigative journalist who authored Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s, and Elizabeth.
Now, this guy's been on a lot of podcasts. I think he's been on Joe Rogan. I can't remember who else. Some of these bigger podcasters on YouTube he's interviewed. Mr. O'Neill.
Ganexi, did I say that right, ma'am? Genexi is an independent consultant and former senior program officer at the National
Hey,
Institute of
Roback.
Health. We look forward to hearing what you have to say today on this
Hey,
important
Tasha.
subject. Pursuant to Committee Rules 9G, the witnesses will please stand and raise their right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Andrews,
Let the
it
record show
changed
that
your
the
word to
witnesses answered in the
smuggling. What
affirmative.
the hell?
Thank you. You may now take your seat. We appreciate you being here today. Let me remind the witnesses that we have read your opening
Y'all hit
statements
the
and it will
like.
appear in full record in the hearing record. Please
Hit the
limit your
damn
oral
like.
statements to 5 minutes. However, if it does go over, we will not be gaveling you out. As a reminder, please press the button on the microphone in front of you so that it is illuminated and members can hear you. When you begin to speak, the light in front of you again will turn green. After 4 minutes, the light will turn yellow.
All right,
and
here
the
we
re-
go.
When
Put
the red
your
light
hats
comes
on,
that means
guys.
that your 5 minutes has expired,
Get your
and we will
hats.
ask you to please wrap it up. I would now like to recognize Stephen Kinder for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Let me begin by expressing my gratitude to this task force for confronting the enormous issue of overclassification of government documents and the culture of secrecy that enables it. I'm especially gratified by your interest in MKULTRA, the project the CIA carried out through the 1950s in an attempt to find the secret of mind control. MKULTRA was one of the most secret government programs in American history. The chemist who directed it, Sidney Gottlieb, lived in total anonymity. My book, Poisoner in Chief, may be the most complete account of MKUltra that exists in public, but I'm painfully aware that I have discovered only a small portion of what MKUltra was and what Sidney Gottlieb did. In 1951, the CIA hired Gottlieb and directed him to launch what became MKUltra. Gottlieb believed that in order to find a way to implant a new mind into someone's brain, you first had to find a way to destroy the mind that was in there already. In its
Yikes.
search for ways to destroy a human mind and body, MKUltra conducted the most extreme experiments on human beings that have ever been carried out by a U.S. government agency. By any standard, they qualify as medical torture. These experiments took place in prisons, clinics, and safe houses in the United States, in Europe, in Asia, and even in Latin
Damn. United States, Europe, and in Asia. Guys, I didn't catch that the first time. I know Kresha is live with the Tyler Robinson. I'm just not following Tyler. I mean, I am, like, personally, but I'm not covering it.
America. Officers of MKUltra were authorized to travel to foreign countries, preferably those
Hi,
under
Flannel.
formal or informal U.S. occupation, and ask the local CIA station to provide them with expendables,
Thanks,
human
sweet.
beings who would not be missed if they disappeared. Gottlieb had what amounted to a license to kill issued by the U.S. government.
Jesus Christ. I mean, that's some pretty powerful language there.
Neither the number of MKUltra victims nor the number of those who were experimented to death is known.
They don't know how many people died in these experiments, and they had 149 sub-projects on top of the original. It's effing scary, dude.
Gottlieb, as a result of this license to kill, might have been the most powerful unknown American of the 20th century. Some information about MKUltra spilled out during the 1970s, but senior CIA officers had intentionally let Gottlieb operate without supervision, so they were able to claim that they knew nothing about his excesses.
Oh, my God.
This was a way for the CIA to deny its institutional role in MKUltra and to portray it misleadingly as the product of one man's sadism or excessive zeal. Investigating MKUltra is challenging because when Gottlieb and his mentor Richard Helms left the CIA in 1973, they illegally ordered that its records be destroyed. Soon afterwards, under DCI Stansfield Turner, a CIA analyst, as you pointed out, Madam Chairman, discovered a cache of
Thanks for
MKUltra
being here,
documents
y'all.
hidden among financial records. Turner credited that analyst with doing a very diligent job of Sherlock Holmesing. That same diligence, I believe, could bring results today. One of the great mysteries of MKUltra has to do with the death in 1953 of an MKUltra scientist, Frank Olson, who had announced his intention to quit the project. His plunge from a New York hotel room was described in the press as the suicide of an Army scientist. He was not an Army scientist. He worked for the CIA, and evidence suggests that his death may not have been a suicide. So there could be hidden documents that could illuminate this case. I would also point out that in addition to searching for unknown documents, this committee could do a tremendous service by simply asking for the end of redactions on the documents that we now have. There are reams of documents about MKUltra that have heavy sections redacted. In the 1970s, this was justified by the argument that it had only been 20 years since these terrible things had happened and revealing details might affect national security. Now 70 years have passed. That
70 fucking years. 70 years? And that's always their excuse. We can't reveal this or that because it's a threat to national security. And we know now that's bullshit. That is bullshit.
argument can no longer be valid. So I would urge this committee to try to fill out all the blank spaces in the documents that we have, because we know that is there.
Vogue, I've missed
This task force could also consider trying to determine whether some new incarnation of MKUltra exists today.
Ooh.
When the main phase of MKUltra drew to a close in the early 1960s, Sidney Gottlieb concluded that it had failed. That in fact, there is no such thing as mind control.
Oh my God.
Even if he was right, however, he may have been right only at that time.
Dude, Robat, thank you for the super chat. I wonder if GATE, Gifted and Talented in Schools Pink Drink, was one of the sub projects. I just watched a freaking video about that. Thank you, Lady Tiger. I just watched a video about that, Robat, and they say that it was. Yikes.
In the many decades since then, there have been enormous advances in
Nick.
cyber technology,
Flow
in
state.
artificial intelligence, in neuroscience. Covert agencies may have access now to tools for mind control that Sidney Gottlieb could not even have imagined.
Mm-hmm.
It may well have been true in 1963 that mind control is a myth.
So he's saying they determined that it couldn't be done. Okay, it was an epic failure, is what they're saying. I've never seen Chaos. Where do I watch that, Weatherby? It's a threat to themselves. Exactly. Exactly. We are so fucking controlled when you look at it. We're controlled by the parties, the political parties. We're controlled and separated by race, political parties. And if we were all together on the same side of everything, and we weren't such assholes to one another, we would definitely be a security threat to them and their bullshit. The pink drink was fluoride. No, I don't think we will know the full extent because of all those documents.
But whether
Being
it's
destroyed.
still true is uncertain.
And then you got to think about, too, if Elon Musk can do what's that called? Neuralink? This is on a whole nother level. Like, how do we know that Elon Musk isn't working for the CIA? Think about Neuralink. And there's people that are getting the Neuralink implanted. People that are paralyzed are moving their bodies again. But it can be used for good, but what else can it be used for?
And that question of whether mind control might now be possible under our new circumstances is something that has presumably occurred to scientists who work for secret services, including our own. This task force has a chance to connect the past to the future. A renewed effort to find MKUltra documents from the 1950s and to fill out the redactions of those that have been released might shed new light on how the CIA operated during that period. It could also inform a new inquiry into whether any mind control projects are now underway inside the U.S. security apparatus. That might help prevent the emergence of a 21st century MKUltra that could be even more destructive than the original.
Yikes, that's scary.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kinzer. I now recognize Tom O'Neill for his opening statement.
That's true, Leo. You're muted, Tom. Wait, hold on.
Oh, sorry. Should I start over?
Okay, hold on a second. What is pink drink? I've never heard of pink drink in schools. I've never heard of that.
Thank you, Chairwoman Luna and members of the committee. It's a privilege to be here today. Almost 50 years ago, the last congressional hearings into MKUltra took place just a short walk from here in the Dirksen Senate Office Building. At those hearings, convened in August and September of 1977, representatives of the CIA told Congress and the American people that its 25-year effort to control human behavior had been a colossal failure. Because I believe Congress was never told the truth about what this program actually achieved.
Yes, Horace
In fact,
Mann.
I believe the agency misled Congress in 1977 when it characterized MKUltra as a failure. My name is Tom O'Neill, and in 1999, I accepted a magazine assignment to write a story about murders committed by a group of hippies called the Manson family. For those unfamiliar with this horrific episode of American history, in the summer of 1969, 4 young people, acting on the orders of a cult leader named Charles Manson, went to the home of movie director Roman Polanski and murdered everyone they found there, including his 8.5-month pregnant wife, the actress Sharon Tate. The victims were complete strangers to their killers. The following night, Manson's followers murdered another couple in the same grisly fashion. At the time I accepted the assignment, I'd never heard of MKUltra, and I wouldn't for another 2 years after I'd missed countless deadlines, lost the assignment, and fallen down a nightmarish rabbit hole trying to answer the question I couldn't quite shake. How had Manson, a barely literate ex-con, acquired the ability to persuade ordinary young people to murder complete strangers simply because he had told them to? The pursuit of the answer to that question led me to Dr. Louis Jolyon West, known to his friends as
Okay, now we're getting into Manson and Jolly West. I want you guys to listen close because we're going to get into one of our clips in just a minute. You're going to be mind blown. Janice Ballet Flats, listening in the bushes. I remember drinking a pink drink in elementary. You did? You're part of MKUltra. I never drank that. I never even saw that. That's so weird. Thank you, Sarah Lee, the missing scientist. What were they doing? Good question. Good question. This can send you into a lot of rabbit holes for sure.
Jolly. West was one of the most influential psychiatrists in America. During his career, he crossed paths with some of the most controversial events of the 20th century, including the Patty Hearst kidnapping case and the aftermath of the John F. Kennedy assassination investigation. In 1977, West was one of 7 academic researchers named in a front-page New York Times story alleging that the CIA had used American universities, hospitals, and prisons as secret laboratories for experiments.
So that's what's really concerning is the broad spectrum of people that were affected. We have people in prisons, people in hospitals, and people in universities. So we've got students, patients, and convicts all under this fucking umbrella of this mind control experiment. Oh, we chewed pink tablets. And if it left gunk on our teeth, that was where we missed and had plaque. Is that the same thing as the pink drink? Because we didn't drink anything. We chewed tablets and then spit them out. And they were pink, but we spit them out. How did they pick the people they experimented on? That's a really good question, Penny. I know in the Unabomber's case, he was actually a student at Harvard. He was extremely brilliant. And he was at Harvard and he volunteered, but it was under false pretenses. They didn't really tell them what it was for. It was something that they weren't sure. You know what I'm saying? They were duped. Yours was a mouthwash in the UK. Interesting. The little pink cups were fluoride. The same little shit your dentist gives your kids. You only got it if no fluoride in the water. Thank you, Flo, for your super chat. Interesting. I've never even heard of GATE. You did the pink drink at schools in Michigan. I was in Michigan. I didn't. It looked like Nestle's Quit. Ooh. You had to swish it around? Wow. I've never seen that. Was it like Pepto-Bismol? That's wild. Never heard of that. Thank you.
Experiments involving LSD and other drugs on unwitting human subjects. West vigorously denied the allegations. He acknowledged that the agency had approached him, but insisted he had refused because he said LSD was too dangerous and unpredictable to be used on humans. He added that he limited all of his research with LSD to animals. The revelations in the Times led directly to the congressional hearings held later that year. West's denials, however, were effective. He was never investigated, and his name never came up at the hearings. I'll spare you the long and tedious...
Wow. So Jolly West somehow managed to not be mentioned at the 1977 hearings.
His story of how my Manson reporting led me to West, except to say that I eventually learned that in 1967, when Manson transformed into the cult leader we are familiar with today, he and his followers were receiving free medical care at a clinic in San Francisco, where West had established a base of operations for a research project he was conducting nearby.
So Jolly West was in San Francisco, and Manson and some of his friends were getting free medical care. Imagine that. Hey, Kels.
After becoming intrigued by the allegations against West, I learned that UCLA, his
Hey,
last
Wonder.
academic home, had inherited his paper following his death in 1999. Nearly 2 months and more than 200 boxes later, I found the proverbial needle in a haystack, correspondence between West and Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, the architect of MKULTRA. The letters begin in 1953, just 2 months after CIA Director Allen Dulles authorized the program.
Hey,
And while
Antoine.
West was stationed at the Lackland Air Force Base in San
So he's giving you a lot right now, but he found the needle in the haystack about Manson. And listen closely.
Antonio, Texas, where he was chief psychiatrist at the base hospital. In his first letter to Gottlieb, West proposed conducting experiments on unwitting human subjects, including military personnel, prisoners, and psychiatric patients at the base hospital. He then outlined the experiments themselves in 6 more pages that could have been written by Joseph Mengele. Using LSD in combination with hypnosis, West proposed inducing confusion, amnesia, and specific mental disorders in people who would remember nothing of their interaction with him afterward.
Hey,
He
Sid.
sought to develop techniques to extract true information and implant false information in unwilling subjects and to alter the attitudes and beliefs of, quote, previously loyal individuals. In other words, to completely switch their allegiance from one group or leader to another. But it was another sentence at the end of that letter that stopped me cold. These experiments, he wrote, must eventually be put to test in practical trials in the field. Gottlieb's response could hardly have been more enthusiastic. My good friend, he wrote, I had been wondering whether your apparent rapid and comprehensive grasp of our problems could possibly be real. You have indeed developed an admirably accurate picture of exactly what we are after. West replied that there was no more vital undertaking conceivable in these times. There was another document in West's papers that had even more significant implications. It was a 14-page report that West wrote in 1956, just 3 years after he contracted with the CIA. In the report, West described administering LSD and other drugs in conjunction with hypnosis on unwitting human subjects, and then he made a remarkable claim. He announced that he had learned how to replace true memories with false memories in people without their knowledge. In other words, he clarified, it has been found to be feasible to take the memory of a definite event in the life of an individual and through hypnotic
This is Jolly West right here. Louis Jolyon West. He died in 99, and he was a longtime consultant and contractor for the Central Intelligence Agency. We're going to learn a little bit about Jolly West right now. West worked in the United States Air Force as a medical officer. He pioneered research into brainwashing techniques employed against American prisoners of war by their captors. His research exonerated U.S. servicemen under suspicion of treason for making false confessions during the Korean War. This brought him to the attention of the CIA. West became involved in research into the use and abuse of LSD and other drugs, becoming a contractor for MKULTRA, a CIA. We know what that is. Listen, in 1954, at the age of 29, West became a full professor and chair of psychiatry at the University of Oklahoma College of Medicine. 29 years old. In 67, West operated in San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district to conduct research into the hippie movement. From 69 to 89, he also served as the chair of psychiatry at the University of California, LA School of Medicine, and director of the UCLA Neuropsychiatric Unit. He worked frequently as a court-appointed psychiatrist and examined Jack Ruby and Patty Hearst during their trials. So there's a lot about him. He was born in Brooklyn to a Ukrainian Jewish immigrant father and a mother who taught piano. He grew up in poverty in Madison, Wisconsin. Let's see what he did after that. After completing prerequisite work at the University of Iowa under the aegis of the Army Specialized Training Program during World War II, he earned his MD from the University of Minnesota Medical School in 1949. Then he went back to Manhattan. So there's a lot on Wikipedia about him. Oh my gosh, Flo, thank you for the 5 trutherships. What a perfect day to become a truther. Caprice, Charisse, Deb K, Lady Tiger, and Scott H. Thank you so much for your support, Flo. So here's one of the more unusual incidents in West's career. Took place in 1962. He and 2 coworkers attempted to investigate the phenomenon of moths in elephants by dosing Tusco, a bull elephant at the Lincoln Park Zoo in Oklahoma City, with LSD. He expected that the drug would trigger a state similar to musk. Instead, the animal began to have seizures 5 minutes after LSD was administered. Beginning 20 minutes later, West and his colleagues administered the antipsychotic promazine chloride. They injected 28 milligrams over 11 minutes. It was not effective and may have contributed to the animal's death. It died an hour and 40 minutes after LSD was given. How careless. But yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot with him. Let's see, does he have kids? Yep, he does. He has 2 daughters, Anne and Mary, and a son, John. Wow. Okay, back to the hearing.
Suggestion bring about the subsequent conscious recall to the effect that this event never actually took place, but that a different fictional event actually did occur. If West's report was accurate, this was not the failure agency officials described in 1977. Quite the opposite. It was, in fact, the central ambition of the MKULTRA operation, the means of gaining the ability to seize the control of a person's perceptions, memories, and ultimately their behavior. But there was still one more discovery, and this time I found it in the National Security Archives at George Washington University, the official repository of the CIA's MKULTRA records, which were released to Congress after the 1977 hearings. In those holdings was a different version of West's 1956 report. The original paper had been replaced by a 4-page summary that did not exist in West's files and appears to have been written by someone else. His claims about replacing memories were gone. In their place was a theoretical discussion of LSD in dissociative states. The version supplied to Congress concluded that the effects of LSD and similar drugs on dissociative states had, and I'm quoting, never been studied. Never been studied. In the original report, West discusses observations from his own experiments, including detailed descriptions of using LSD to, as he wrote, speed the induction of the hypnotic state and deepen the trance in subjects. Those passages have been removed in the report turned over to Congress.
Wow.
The discrepancy could not have been more stark.
Wow. So they actually took parts out. Look at this lady. She's like, oh, hells no. Thank you so much, Robat, for your super chat. Anyone remember the mysterious arcade game Polybius that showed up in certain locations in the 80s? Pretty sure this was part of the project. Never heard of it. What is that? Let's look it up. The video game. A fictional 1980s arcade game that became the subject of a massive online urban legend and creepypasta. I've never heard of it. Rumors claim the game had intense psychoactive properties, causing players to suffer from amnesia, night terrors, seizures, or hallucinations. The myth states that men in black or government agents would periodically service the machine to harvest data. Damn. What did it look like? I never heard of it. Have you guys heard of it? This is it right here. Oh, dude, I've never seen this game. It does look like some kind of... Hang on. What is this? Music. Wait, I don't understand. Dude, what is this? Polybius. I've never heard of that robot. Now you got me in another rabbit hole. Creepypasta made it an urban legend. I'm going to have to look into that. Jesus. I knew this was rabbit hole, but damn. I love the Y-Files.
Nearly 50 years ago, another congressional committee believed it had been given the truth about MKUltra. It had not. In conclusion, I respectfully submit that these records, some newly available and others that remained outside the government's disclosure for decades.
He sounds kind of nervous and scared, doesn't he? And he's been on this for a long time.
Warrant a thorough re-examination of what the program accomplished, what Congress was told, and what may still remain hidden. I'm happy to provide the documents I've referenced today, and I've provided many additional details in my written testimony.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. I now recognize...
Is it low?
For her opening
Oh my God, I forgot.
Chairman.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Do you guys want me to play that again? I turned it down because the music. Here, I'll play that part again. Sorry about that.
In the original report, West discusses observations from his own experiments, including detailed descriptions of using LSD to, as he wrote, speed the induction of the hypnotic state and deepen the trance in subjects. Those passages have been removed in the report turned over to Congress. The discrepancy could not have been more stark. Nearly 50 years ago, another congressional committee believed it had been given the truth about MKUltra. It had not. In conclusion, I respectfully submit that these records, some newly available and others that remained outside the government's disclosure for decades, warrant a thorough re-examination of what the program accomplished, what Congress was told, and what may still remain hidden. I'm happy to provide the documents I've referenced today, and I've provided many additional details in my written testimony.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. I now recognize Elizabeth Genexi for her opening statement.
Thank you, Flo. Is this a rabbit hole or a moon crater? I think it's a moon crater with a bunch of rabbit holes off of it.
Chairman
Thank you,
Luna
Flo.
And distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'm a health research scientist with a master's and doctoral degrees in psychology from the George Washington University. I spent 22 years from 2003 to 2025 as a scientific program official at the National Institutes of Health, managing more than $132 million in health research grants.
Wow, the National Institute of Health. Isn't that where Patsy Ramsey got cancer treatment, y'all? Remember John said he found the best cancer treatment, the newest formula, and she went to the NIH. He said,
Co-authoring
Cindy.
18 federal funding programs. I left the NIH in April of 2025. I'm here today because what is happening to NIH right now is not reform. It is the replacement of scientific judgment with political control. For 80 years, U.S. federal investment in biomedical research produced outcomes that no private market would have funded. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in the United States. NIH-funded research on blood pressure, cholesterol, and smoking drove a 56% decline in heart disease between 1950 and 1996. Cancer has been transformed. Treatments for breast, lung, prostate, and childhood cancers, along with immunotherapies that converted previously fatal diagnoses into manageable conditions, traced directly to NIH-funded research.
Yep, that's exactly where Patsy got her cancer treatment. Interesting. I guess when you know people, you know people.
HIV/AIDS were a death sentence in 1981. No pharmaceutical company saw a profitable market for treatments. NIH ran the trials that no one else would run. The result was antiretroviral therapy and pre-exposure prophylaxis. Global AIDS deaths have fallen 54% since 2010. Rare diseases that affect 30 million Americans get studied at the NIH because no market will fund that research. Every dollar that's appropriated to the National Institutes of Health generates $2.46 in economic output. NIH-supported work contributed to 354 of the 356 new drugs that the FDA approved between 2010 and 2019. Cutting the funding source of that pipeline does not slow it, it ends it. The proposed OMB
that,
federal
AJ?
financial assistance rule would give political appointees authority to terminate funded grants at any time without cause, including ongoing clinical trials with enrolled patients. This is not a hypothetical. NIH has already terminated or frozen thousands of grants, including hundreds of ongoing clinical trials since January 2025.
What is she there for?
Concentrated
Is
in
she there for
infectious
cleanup?
disease, vaccine, and health disparities research. This proposed rule will make that authority permanent. The NIH director has eliminated the merit score thresholds that once protected peer review, and political appointees are right now overriding peer review outcomes to screen grants for alignment with administrative priorities. The proposed OMB rule will also severely restrict international research. We're managing an H5N1 bird flu outbreak that has more than 70 documented human cases. We recently concluded a hantavirus response that required CDC scientists working alongside Argentine counterparts.
Hantavirus. Shut up.
The current Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo is now the third largest on record and is outpacing containment efforts. This
I
rule
think they
will
start
curtail
all these
exactly
on
that
purpose.
kind
I think all these fucking viruses they put out there on purpose. And this lady gets on my nerves. She looks shady as hell.
of cooperation that we need. NIH lost
Hey, Army vet, good to see ya.
1,112 PhD-trained workers from 2025 to early 26. More than half of the NIH institutes right now are operating without permanent scientific leadership. The majority of its advisory councils required by statute to provide independent oversight have lost more than half of their members. The fundamental choice before this Congress is between a system where scientists make scientific judgments through accountable processes and one where
shut up,
political
lady.
appointees make those calls instead.
Hey, Lisa.
That choice will determine whether the next breakthroughs in cancer, Alzheimer's, antibiotic resistance, and pandemic defense will happen here, somewhere else, or perhaps not at all. I urge this committee to support a joint resolution of disapproval to block the proposed OMB financial assistance rule. That authority to replace peer review with political approval has not been granted by Congress and
Dr.
should not
Janessa,
be.
your time's expired. I'll be now going to myself.
Thank you very much.
Questioning. Thank you, ma'am.
Have
My
we
first
heard
question is
enough?
for Mr. O'Neill. MK Naomi, the
hang
Joint
on.
CIA Army program that ran
In the beginning, she said, don't worry, you only have 5 minutes, but if you go over, it's okay. She's like, ma'am, you're done.
parallel with MKULTRA at Fort Detrick appears to have been run with deliberate minimal documentation. Army records on Special Operations Division have apparently been destroyed. In your investigation, what did you learn about MK Naomi, and do you believe its activities were even more serious than what we know about MKULTRA?
MK Naomi?
I'm sorry, I didn't learn anything about those operations. I kept my focus mostly on Dr. West and his work. I do know that the only reason I found the documents I found was because Dr. West accidentally left them in his papers, and he probably did that because he corresponded with Gottlieb under Gottlieb's assigned alias, which was Sherman Grifford, and he addressed all his mail to a post office box here under a Foss Corporation.
Thank
So-
you, Mr. I'm just going to real quick go to
Okay.
Dr. Kinzer. Are you aware of anything that exists with MK Naomi in your research? And if you could please press the button.
My understanding of MK Naomi is that it was a joint project between the military and the CIA. And there's a big difference because the MKULTRA project was aimed at seizing control of the minds of individuals. The Army was interested in something different, which was trying to use biological agents in warfare against entire populations. So MK Naomi is the place where these two goals overlapped.
And that was the
Where do they get
1953
these
Frank
names?
Olson death. Was that in a way tied to that from some chatter that we had seen in?
Exactly what the motivation was behind the decision
Hey,
about
White
Frank
Lotus.
Olson, if there was such a decision, is unknown.
My next question is also for you, sir. Operation Paperclip brought over 1,600 German scientists into the United States government after World War II,
Right here.
including individuals who had conducted human experimentation in concentration camps. The CIA and military were aware of their backgrounds and recruited them anyways. In your research, did you find direct documentation between Paperclip scientists and the development of MKULTRA's experimental protocols, specifically the use of mescaline, hypnosis, and sensory deprivation, which were techniques also documented at Dachau?
Absolutely. Kurt Blome, who was the chief of biological weapons development for the Nazi government, came to work for the CIA. So did Walter Schreiber, who was the Surgeon General of the Nazi Army.
Wow. Wow. That's mind-blowing. I mean, I know a lot of us knew this, but to hear it, like, we deport people who we find out were Nazi soldiers. There was an old man in Michigan deported at like 85 or 90.
Kurt Blome, who was the chief of biological weapons development for the Nazi government, came to work for the CIA. So did Walter Schreiber, who was the Surgeon General of the Nazi Army. I can just tell a brief story. When I was researching my book, I found what I think might be the first secret CIA prison or black site. It's a nice chalet in Germany. And the guy who now owns it took me into the basement. He said these were the cells where the MKULTRA officers, working side by side with Nazis, carried out those gruesome experiments, which were actually just continuations of the experiments that those Nazis had been conducting just a few years earlier right down the road.
Just for timeline and clarification, these experiments were happening after the Nuremberg trials, correct? So the CIA would have known that these were crimes against humanity.
I looked for an episode in which the Nuremberg doctrines were posted on the wall in some MKUltra or CIA office, and I was never able to find any indication that those Nuremberg principles ever were even consulted, much less obeyed.
Thank you. My next question would be for either witness to comment, Dr. Kinzer or Mr. O'Neill. Both witnesses have written about the psychiatrist Louis Jolly West. Sidney Gottlieb, who ran MKUltra program for the CIA, hired West as a contractor to conduct research for subproject 43, combining hypnotism, drugs, and sensory deprivation to create dissociative states, in which, to quote Mr. Kinzer in his book Poisoner in Chief, the human mind could be pulled away from its moorings. Following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, West psychiatrically examined Jack Ruby, then in prison for murdering the president accused of the assassination, Lee Harvey Oswald. The assassin accused of murdering President Kennedy, Lee Harvey Oswald. A report emerged from West's examination said that Ruby had suffered an acute psychotic break. Can you explain why Dr. West in particular was chosen to conduct an examination of Jack Ruby alone in his jail cell with no other psychologist present?
Be happy to. West inserted himself into the case. When Ruby was, the day of the shooting, the day after the shooting, West approached the judge in the preliminary hearings and asked to be assigned to the case. He was
Jolly West approached the judge and said, please assign me to this case. So they did?
Was refused by the judge. After Ruby was convicted at his first trial, an associate of West, Dr. Hubert Winston Smith, who was a psychiatrist and an attorney, took over Ruby's defense for his appeal, and he had already discussed appointing Ruby to the case, or excuse me, West to the case. And as you said, West examined Ruby alone at the jail cell and emerged to announce that in the preceding 48 hours he had an acute psychotic break from which he would never recover. He had been declared competent to stand trial the first time by a panel of, I think, 8 psychiatrists. This psychotic break lasted until his death in 1967. 2 months after West examined him, Ruby testified for the first time and only time to the Warren Commission. It was the first time he ever publicly was supposed to say what his reasons were for shooting Oswald. The testimony had to be halted because he was babbling incoherently, and as Arlen
Jesus Christ, babbling incoherently?
Inspector, who was a counsel to the commission, wrote in his memoirs, he pulled him aside and said that they were cutting off the arms and legs of children in Albuquerque and El Paso, and he said he was making no sense whatsoever. West.
Dude, I kept thinking, oh my gosh, Flo, as I was prepping for this show, I kept thinking of Richard Allen. It's crazy.
In his letters to Gottlieb from 1953, discussed experiments where he would induce specific mental disorders in people without their awareness. The year before the Kennedy assassination, he publicly spoke in Oklahoma City and talked about his LSD experiments inducing psychiatric breaks and psychosis in people.
So notice he's from Oklahoma. He spoke at the, what did he say? In Oklahoma City about inducing psychiatric breaks and psychosis.
LSD experiments inducing psychiatric breaks and psychosis in people with the use of LSD, which of course later contradicted what he told the New York Times when he said he never used LSD in animal experimentation.
What an interesting connection. I'm out of time, but I'll be now recognizing Mr. Burleson from Missouri for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your diligent work on this, and hopefully we will hear back from the CIA on those boxes of documents that have so many questions about. Dr. Kinzer and Mr. O'Neill, the CIA created MKULTRA in 1953, supposedly out of fear that the Soviet Union and China had developed mind control capabilities. Let me go back a little bit further. So one of my questions has to do with the event that happened in 1951 in August in France. There was a bakery that, I guess the people that lived in that community, over 250, some say 300 people were poisoned from the bread. It was determined that that was LSD that was...
Oh my God. In 1951, LSD was put in freaking bread in France.
That was causing all of these people to hallucinate. Some people died. Is there any connection, Dr. Kinzer, to that event? And was that something that either inspired the MKUltra program or the MK Naomi program, or is that something that we were involved in even that early on?
I would turn that question back to you. I don't think anybody really knows the full story of what happened at in that town in France. That the United States could have been involved, that this could have been part of what was then called Operation Artichoke, the predecessor for MKUltra, seems to me not beyond the realm of possibility. There's a lot of overlap between the ergot enzyme that is the basis of LSD and certain rye and wheat funguses that can be used in breads. Was that something intentional? Was it something the Americans were involved in? I have my suspicions, but just based on my background as a journalist, I don't operate on suspicion. So I would love to see more investigation of that episode.
Hi, Sparky. Yeah, smoke them if you got them.
My next question has to do with, once the program began, I think one of the most shocking things that we've determined is the Operation Midnight Climax that occurred.
Oh, God, here we go. Midnight Climax. Here we go. This is where they used prostitutes, the CIA, that is. They used prostitutes to lure men to hotel rooms where the men would be drugged with LSD, and the sicko CIA would watch how LSD affected them in sexual situations.
In the early 1950s, 60s, where the CIA had safe houses, and there was, I would say, Dr. Kinzer, I mean, this is extremely disturbing behavior that was happening, where you had American citizens who were being lured into these brothels and then dosed with an hallucinogenic and then filmed during their sex acts. Was there anyone prosecuted for these crimes?
No, there have been no prosecutions.
No prosecutions. Where are all these women? Right, Operation Climax, Midnight Climax. It just shows how sick they are. Filmed during their sexual act, drugged and filmed. It's effing sick.
For any crime related to MKUltra, as far as I know. To me, the remarkable aspect of that Operation Midnight Climax was that there wasn't even the pretense of scientific experimentation. The person watching behind the one-way mirror was a grossly overweight drug officer sitting on a portable toilet and drinking.
Oh my God. He said oh my God. There wasn't even the pretense of scientific experimentation. These dudes were drugged and then they filmed them having sex, and there was someone on the other side of the mirror, and he's like, it was some fat, lower level officer. Gross.
The person watching behind the one-way mirror was a grossly overweight drug officer sitting on a portable toilet and drinking cocktails out of a pitcher.
Oh my God, what? Disturbing.
There was nobody there that was a scientist or somebody who had understood sexual behavior or human psychology. So there was no science involved in it at all. I can add a little footnote. When I was researching Poisoner-in-Chief, I came across a document in which one of the officers involved in setting up that program, Operation Midnight Climax, said that Sidney Gottlieb himself used to fly from Washington out to inspect the project regularly and always asked that women be provided for him. So,
what the what? This is disgusting.
Operation Midnight Climax said that Sidney Gottlieb himself used to fly from Washington out to inspect the project regularly and always asked that women be provided for him. So
That was my next question. Do you
made
think
me
that the
wonder.
agents were involved in the sexual encounters?
Well, and could that have actually been the reason why the bordello was opened? There was no prospect of any serious scientific result out of that project, given the personnel who were overseeing it. So those CIA officers, particularly Gottlieb, involved in overseeing Operation Midnight Climax, certainly were able to take advantage of what it offered.
Thank you. And my last question, first I want to say thank you to
They took advantage of what it offered. Patrice has a really good question. Were the women real prostitutes, and what was offered to convince them to give the men LSD? Yeah, I think we're missing a whole piece of that puzzle, Patrice. Paid off? I know, Robat. And no one ever prosecuted.
Mr. O'Neill, the book Chaos. I checked it out from the Library of Congress and greatly appreciate your work
Hey,
there.
Ark.
I was intrigued by one of the statements that you made based on your research that the MKUltra program, they were actually successfully able to replace memories. And because of that, I'm wondering if, and Dr. Kinzer, you can chime in if you have any knowledge of this.
What?
Did the program continue, and do you think that the program in some aspect is still continuing today?
You're asking if the program continued after 1973 when
That's
it was halted, supposedly. I honestly, that's a question I'm asked at almost every appearance I do. Is it happening today? Did it continue? I don't know. I can't imagine that it didn't, though, because the technology that they worked to establish over 20, 25 years and spent more money on than any operation the CIA had ever conducted was successful. I imagine it's being used. I have no evidence of it being used, so it's a complete assumption.
Which brings us to our first poll that we're doing throughout this. The first poll was, do you think the CIA is still doing covert experiments without our knowledge? 88% of you said yes. 3% said no, and 9% are unsure. I think it's safe to say there's some form going on. They're not just going to fall behind because they just suddenly got morals and ethics. Morals and ethics. Still stuck on Midnight Climax. What the fuck?
I would just add that one of the letters to which Mr. O'Neill referred contains a quote from Mr. Gottlieb saying that these experiments were necessary, quote, in these times. I think it's important to put yourself back in that mindset where the United States felt that it was under such overwhelming threat that the loss of a few lives or a few hundred lives was a small price to pay. Commitment to a great cause is one of the most fundamental justifications for committing immoral acts. And patriotism is among the most noble of causes. It can be twisted, and it can be used as an excuse to carry out research under the guise that this is simply research we're doing to protect ourselves against others. And I think that is a mindset that may still be active in some parts of our government.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Madam Chair. My time has expired. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Burleson. I now recognize myself. Thank you to the witnesses for coming today to testify
Look at that
about
hair.
MKUltra. Dr. Janexi, you said you worked for the NIH, is that correct?
That is correct.
And you left in 2025?
That is correct.
I noticed during your opening statement that you had nothing to say about the content of this hearing being about MKUltra. Your statement seemed to be based more on your issues with this administration's attempt to reform and rein in the NIH. Is that a fair assessment of your opening statement?
My opening statement was talking about the destruction of the NIH and cancellation of grants and political control of the NIH.
Would you deny that the NIH had involvement in the funding of the Wuhan lab?
I don't have any knowledge about any funding related to the Wuhan lab.
So are you denying that the NIH?
I'm basically
the
here to
Wuhan
talk
lab?
about what's happening right now at the NIH and how we really should be letting science be driven by scientists and not by politicians.
Well, do you-
Because that's how we fund cures and make health progress.
Well, with all due respect, ma'am, do you find it ironic that for years we were told to trust the science, and then in the aftermath, we've all found out that most of what we were told during COVID was a complete lie, and it wasn't scientific at all?
The number one thing that I think that we're doing to destroy trust in American science right now is canceling clinical trials. In the middle of those clinical trials, this does incredible harm to the patients who are receiving experimental treatments, And it really destroys the trust that we have in how do we recruit patients for future trials if they are knowing that their trials could just be simply canceled for political reasons.
I don't think anybody up here would deny that there's never been anything good that's come out of the NIH and that you guys have done some good work, but you just brought up trust. Do you think the NIH has a trust problem based on how they handled COVID?
No, I do not. I think that the NIH is beloved by the American people because we know about the advances in human health and cancer treatments and heart disease and diabetes and all of the health gains that the research has produced.
Well, I think you're wrong, ma'am. I think the public has a serious mistrust issue with the NIH. Do you deny that the NIH tried to cover up the origin of COVID?
I'm not here to testify about that. That's not my area of science. I have no knowledge of that.
Do you believe that the NIH supported masking and social distancing when there was really no science to support that?
What I'm more concerned about is what's happening right now to destroy the Biomedical Research Institute that has been the envy of the world. And right now, we're ceding our leadership in biomedical research to China. That's what's happening right now.
What about covering up harmful side effects of vaccines and the role that the NIH has played in that? What do you have to say about that, ma'am?
The U.S. history of human subject protection has evolved greatly. Numerous research improprieties from the 50s to the 70s in the United States, including the Tuskegee syphilis study, forced Congress to establish formally federal
I'm not asking you about that.
mandated rules.
You know what I'm asking you about? I'm asking you about how NIH handled COVID. Obviously, this is supposed to be a hearing about MKUltra, but when you gave your opening statement, and I don't even know why you were called to this hearing because you didn't offer anything about MKUltra. But since you are here and you're going to defend NIH, I'm going to call you out on it.
Damn. Oh my God, we got applause for that.
Do you see now what I'm talking about? When you say that the NIH doesn't have integrity problems and trust issues, did you hear the applause in this room? That should tell you right now that you're pretty tone deaf to what the public thinks about how the NIH handled COVID and the cover up, not only the funding of it, but the cover up involved in the aftermath. Can you acknowledge that?
I'm sorry, that's not my understanding.
What was that?
Thank you. I want to.
Wait, hold on. What was that? What was that little clapping at the end?
My understanding.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge Ms. Boebert for the next round of questioning.
Applause.
Thank you,
to
Mr. Chairman,
him.
and thank you to two of our witnesses who are here to actually talk on our subject here today. Mr. Kinzer, in your book, Poisoner in Chief, you describe how Project MKUltra was authorized by CIA Director Alan Dulles in April of 1953 as an umbrella program for research into the covert use.
Okay, Dulles. Isn't that who we named an airport after? I think we need to change that airport name in New York if that's true. We need to change that. We also need to change the Hoover building. Hoover was a shameful, shameful man.
Use of biological and chemical materials for mind control and interrogation. What specific geopolitical and intelligence concerns, particularly regarding alleged Soviet and Chinese, quote, brainwashing and Korean War prisoners, drove this authorization? And how did Cindy Gottlieb's unique background and personality and worldwide view shape the program's direction and methods and ethical boundaries?
Let me start by answering your second question about Gottlieb. He was a very different person from all of the other senior CIA officers of that era. Most of them came from silver spoon backgrounds. They went to the same prep schools and the same Ivy League colleges and belonged to the same yacht clubs and worked for the same law firms and international banks. Sidney Gottlieb was a...
Oh, so all connected. You hear all that? They all went to the same prep schools.
Son of Orthodox Jewish refugees from Central Europe. He had a limp. He had a stutter. He went to Hebrew school. He was so different from all of the other officers. And upon reflection, I think this may not have been an accident. I think that people at the CIA understood that whoever had this job was going to be doing some awful, terrible things that would be very bloody, that they might become known, and it might be necessary to blame it all on somebody. And they didn't want to have to blame it all on one of their own. So Gottlieb actually became the person on whom everything was blamed. In fact, when he testified in secret here in Congress in the 1970s, he complained that there were documents on which various signatures had been redacted, but his alone had remained. So is a way of diverting attention away from the institutional responsibility of the CIA and trying to blame it on one crazy person. As for the international situation at the time, I think it's very important to understand this because there is a sort of a parallel to today. The CIA misinterpreted several key incidents in the world, including those to which you referred, the trial of the Cardinal Mindszenty, and then in Hungary, and then the return of Korean War prisoners. Neither of those episodes really had to do with mind control, but in the CIA they were interpreted that way. And this gave the CIA a reason to pretend that its research was purely defensive. So I think when you consider the world situation and the sense in Washington that we're surrounded by enemies, that becomes a very dangerous environment. Conspiracy theories stem from the growth of the covert sphere. There's a great contradiction in American life that we pretend to uphold certain principles at home and abroad, but it's evident to many Americans that we actually operate in opposition to those principles. And we operate by secret and anti-democratic means. That contributes to suspicion of government. And the very existence of MKUltra proves that some of the wildest fantasies about secret government research are actually close to reality. That makes the paranoid mindset seem ever more rational.
Thank you. And I'm going to have to cut off several of my questions now, but that was very intriguing, so I wanted you to continue. MKUltra ultimately encompassed at least 149 sub-projects involving more than 80 institutions, universities, hospitals, prisons, pharmaceutical companies, often funded through cutout foundations to conceal CIA sponsorship. Can you detail how these funding and operational security mechanisms worked in practice? And then just another subset, if I don't get back to asking a question, did the CIA or government or any of these entities ever say that what they were doing with MKUltra and mind control were productive or for the betterment of humanity? Did they ever make those claims? Thank you.
As for your second question, I'm not aware, other than in private communications, that the CIA ever claimed that it had made great advances under MKUltra because it largely denied that MKUltra ever existed. As for the foundations, these are...
Yeah, we can't even believe them because they denied that they even did it. You think they're going to be honest about their outcomes?
Sidney Gottlieb...
Oh, speaking of the airport, let me give you a little palate cleanser. This is real quick.
Week from today, listen to this. Travelers will be officially flying out of the President Donald J. Trump International Airport.
It is happening. The rebranding effort is already underway with changes planned across the airport from terminal signs to baggage tags. I want you to take a look at this. On the drive into the airport, a sign that once welcomed passengers to PBI is now stripped down in preparation for its new look. You can see it now says President Donald J. Trump International Airport.
Yeah, so this is video one of our photographers captured there on I-95 earlier this morning. I feel like for the next couple of days, this might be a little bit confusing if you're not from our area. You might be looking for PBI signs. You're going to see this. So hopefully you can get to your destination and where you're going.
It's so egocentric.
They've created a couple of bogus foundations. They're called cutouts in CIA slang. And these are foundations that appear to be independent, but actually are fully funded and controlled by the CIA.
Oh my God. So they had fake foundations too, to make it look like they were outside entities. Jesus. Listen to this.
MKUltra ever existed. As for the foundations, these are, Sidney Gottlieb created a couple of bogus foundations. They're called cutouts in CIA slang. And these are foundations that appear to be independent, but actually are fully funded and controlled by the CIA. It was those foundations that approached hospitals and clinics and asked them to become involved in research, particularly into LSD. So many of the institutions where these experiments took place did not even realize that those foundations were actually covers for the CIA.
Thank you very much. And Madam Chair, I yield.
That's sick.
Thank you. I now recognize Representative Mace from South Carolina for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. Dr. Genexi, you work with the NIH, correct?
I love this part.
I am no longer affiliated with the NIH.
When did you leave the NIH?
April of last year.
April of last year. Did you ever speak with Anthony Fauci or any of your NIH colleagues when you were there about the NIH's role in funding the Wuhan Institute of Virology or the development of COVID-19 virus?
No.
Do you believe that the NIH or Dr. Fauci lied to the American people about COVID?
No.
Are you familiar with Dr. Fauci's statements to Congress about COVID?
No.
You didn't watch any of Dr. Fauci. You worked at the NIH and you didn't watch any of Dr. Fauci's.
No, I did not work at NIAID.
Okay. Do you think that Do you think the COVID shots harm American citizens?
Remember,
No,
you're
I
under
do not.
oath. Oh my God.
Do you think the COVID shots harm American citizens?
No, I do not.
I don't trust this lady at all.
Do you think that the COVID shots cause turbo cancers?
No.
Have you read any, do you know if the NIH or NIAID track COVID shot injuries or cancers or anything harmful from them?
I am not aware of any harmful tracking, and this is not my
Stop
area of
it.
expertise, no.
What is your area of expertise?
I'm a research psychologist, and I did not work at NIAID.
And you're here for what reason?
I am here to testify about what is happening to the NIH right now.
You're not here to testify about MKULTRA?
I am not an MKUltra expert,
Why did the Dems send you here if you're not an MKUltra expert?
but I am an expert in human subjects protection, which is related, and in the conduct of
Fuck.
human subjects research.
Okay. But you don't know anything about MKUltra, which is the purpose of this hearing. All right, so I have a couple, but you don't know anything about MKUltra, which is the purpose of this hearing. All right, so I have a couple questions for our witnesses who are here to talk about MKUltra, and thank you, gentlemen, Dr. Kinzer and Mr. O'Neill. What are some of the worst abuses that you're aware of in the MKUltra program?
I can start by just naming, I'll talk about one in particular that always sticks in my mind. In the federal prison in Lexington, Kentucky, a group of African-American inmates was segregated and fed what were described in the protocol as double, triple, and quadruple doses of LSD every day for 77 days.
That is fucking disturbing. You want to talk about fucking racism? Let's play that part again. A group of African-American prisoners in Lexington, Kentucky.
Always sticks in my mind.
Hey,
In
Trail.
the federal prison in Lexington, Kentucky, a group of African-American inmates was segregated and fed what were described in the protocol as double, triple, and quadruple doses of LSD every day for 77 days.
Did they all survive?
We have no idea.
They have no idea what happened to these guys. What the fuck? 77 days of pure torture.
What happened to them? This has stuck with me ever since I wrote that book. What happened to them? Did they ever find out what was given to them? Did they think they were going crazy? Did they? I think if the.
Do you think we're still experimenting on prisoners or people in prison today?
I don't have any information about that. Okay. I'm hoping there'll be.
Wow, that was a loaded question, and it makes me think of Richard Allen. Listen again.
I think if the.
Do you think we're still experimenting on prisoners or people in prison today?
I don't have any information about that.
Okay.
I'm hoping there'll be another book about
Mr.
what's
O'Neill,
happening now.
what are some of the worst abuses in MKUltra?
There were many. The Frank Olson case, which was referenced earlier, that was a murder. I don't believe that was a suicide. And the motivation was because he was going to be a whistleblower. He worked at the CIA. He worked in the development of biological weapons, and he was planning to go public and announce that the United States government was using biological weapons in the Korean War. And also he was going to...
You know, and that pisses me off. My dad served in the Korean War. It's so fucking gross what they're doing and what they've done.
share what he knew about MKUltra experiments, including lethal experiments, and there's a documented case.
How many, gentlemen, how many people do you think died through the MKUltra program or were murdered?
No idea.
If those who died largely were outside the United States, many people were experimented to death in that safe house in Germany that I visited, and people in the neighborhood told me they knew what was going on in that house, and that people who were experimented to death are now buried in what used to be forest plots that are now covered over with
Do you think the
apartments.
German
What the what? Germany. There's people buried around there. Oh my God.
Experimented to death are now buried in what used to be forest plots that are now covered over
Do you think
with
the German
apartments.
government knew what the U.S. government was doing? Do you think there was a partnership there or knowledge?
Yes, there is a memo that was written by the German Secret Service to Konrad Adenauer, the Chancellor of Germany, telling him Americans are here capturing citizens, capturing people and conducting extreme experiments which are in violation of German law. And Adenauer decided to put that aside and not to
I
investigate
have one more
further.
question because I have 15 seconds. Is this a massive cover-up by the U.S. government?
It's certainly a cover-up of what happened in the past.
Mr. O'Neill?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Representative Mace. I now recognize Mr. Perry from Pennsylvania for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to the witnesses for being here. To Dr. Kinzer and Mr. O'Neill, I want to focus on the information that we do have and things of that nature. Do we know of, can you name the location, say the prisons, the hospitals, other institutions, and the cutouts as you described?
Good question.
Either one of you folks described them that would be familiar to us or the American people.
That's a great question. So he wants to know the locations of the prisons and things and institutions. And then he also wants to know about the fake foundations.
You described, either one of you folks described them that would be familiar to us or the American people. Can you name these?
Yeah, if I could begin just by saying, at the end of the 1977 hearings, Senator Ted Kennedy and Senator Daniel Inouye, who were the co-chairs, demanded that there be an investigation to find out who were the perpetrators, where were the experiments conducted, and most importantly, to find, locate victims, compensate them, notify them, because many didn't even know they'd been experimented on, and give them lifetime medical care. President Jimmy Carter and Attorney General Griffin Bell said the federal government will begin an investigation. That never happened. Instead, the CIA created something called the Victims Task Force to investigate itself. It was a two-man investigation to locate victims, and they only looked for people who had been experimented on in the safe houses. They completely, because I interviewed both of them before they passed away, they completely avoided institutional experimental programs at the hospitals. And you're asking about the hospitals, the Oklahoma City Hospital, Lackland Air Force Base Hospital, the Lexington Addiction Center, which Dr. Kinzer referred to, the Holmesburg Prison, Vacaville Prison, universities all over the country, Yale, Ivy League universities. None of those records. There was a criminal investigation was also supposed to start into Gottlieb's destruction of the records. That had been announced by the Justice Department. And I interviewed Griffin Bell and asked him what happened to all those investigations and what happened to all those efforts to locate victims. He said it just must have fallen through the cracks.
So it was the DOJ that was supposed to investigate?
DOJ, the Department of Justice, and they just kept passing it off and passing it off.
The Department of Just Us. Danish girl, thank you for your super chat. This is very interesting. Denmark did all kinds of weird stuff to mental patients. Yes. And we did too. And we did those in Canada. We actually contracted with institutions in Canada as well.
Do you know if the DOJ in their investigation visited the places that you've named?
No, absolutely not.
Wait, hold on a second. They didn't, or you don't know?
Oh, no. I asked the two men who did the investigation, and they said all we did was look into what happened at the safe houses in San Francisco and New York City in 1962.
So is it possible that information and documentation remains at the prisons, the treatment centers, the universities where these things were conducted? Is that possible?
Yeah, well, I found Dr. West's records at UCLA in his file. Hospital records are really hard to get because of HIPAA laws, and prison records, the Bureau of Prisons do have a lot. So yeah, it is possible there's still documents buried places.
What were the average ages, if you know, of the people that were experimented on? Were these children? Were these middle-aged? Were they...
Well, there were adolescent studies done in juvenile detention facilities and jails with kids who were 16, 17, 18 years old. And
you hear this? This is going to bring us to our first clip, okay? And this is just a short clip. Thank you, by the way, Ann T, for your Cash App. I appreciate that a lot. It helps more than you know. Again, a big thank you to Belinda Buckner. I'm just checking to make sure I'm not missing anything. Stephen B., thank you for your Venmo. I appreciate that. That was a couple days ago. Thank you so much, you guys. This is our first clip. This is going to be on Manson. Never mind the video. I just want you to hear the info included in this. I'm going to speed it up just a little. Here we go. 4-minute clip.
Charles Manson, a name synonymous with one of the most horrifying cults in history, the Manson family. But what if I told you there's more to his story? That Manson wasn't just a troubled man who preyed on vulnerable minds. What if he was also a product of a dark government experiment designed to control the human mind? Today, we dive into one of the most chilling questions about Manson's past. Was he a subject of the CIA's infamous MKULTRA mind control experiments? And if he was, how could the government possibly get away with using someone like Manson to carry out its sinister agenda? The MKUltra program. If you've never heard of it, it's time to wake up. MKUlTRA was a series of secret CIA experiments that ran from the 1950s to the early 1970s. Its goal? to explore methods of mind control, using drugs, hypnosis, and psychological manipulation to turn people into puppets, and all without their consent. And the most chilling part, it was all done in the name of national security. But what happens when these experiments go wrong? When the very people meant to be controlled begin to manipulate others? Charles Manson's life before the Manson family was anything but ordinary. He spent years in and out of prisons, often involved in petty crime and struggling to survive. But in the 1960s, something strange happened. Manson became more involved with people who were connected to the government. During this time, he was introduced to government-backed mind control experiments while behind bars. In fact, Manson was released from prison multiple times in the 1960s, despite his history of violent behavior. Why was he repeatedly freed, only to spiral into chaos again? Was it merely a coincidence, or could it have been part of a larger, more sinister plan? Now let's talk about MKULTRA. Many of the people involved in Manson's life during this time were linked to various forms of psychological experimentation, and that's where things get interesting. Manson himself has been linked to LSD use and many other forms of mind-altering substances, which were central to MKULTRA's experiments. Experts state Manson was one of many subjects in these sick experiments. Tom O'Neill's investigation in Chaos presents a startling theory. Manson's manipulation of his followers, using LSD and other psychological tactics, could have been a direct result of his exposure to these mind control programs. O'Neill suggests that Manson may have been trained to lead a cult, turning his skills into a weapon to control others. But let's step back for a moment. How is it possible that the government could have used someone like Manson, a man who would go on to orchestrate brutal murders, in such an experiment without any accountability? After all, MKULTRA was supposed to be secret. The CIA didn't want anyone to know about it, and that secrecy led to one of the most shocking cover-ups in modern history. How could the government have carried out such a program, knowingly using people like Manson as pawns, and then simply erased all traces of it? The answer lies in the power of secrecy and control. For decades, the public was kept in the dark about MKULTRA's scope. The government had the means, the motive, and the opportunity to cover it all up. So the question remains, was Charles Manson truly a product of MKULTRA? And if so, how many others like him were created in the shadows, their lives molded by government experimentation? We may never know the full truth, but one thing is certain. When the government holds the power to manipulate and control minds, the consequences are deadly. Thanks for watching. If you're as shocked by this...
Okay, that's our first clip. Now, it's important, and it didn't include in that clip, that Manson spent his entire life in orphanages, boys' schools. In his numerous interviews he's done, he talked about how he was sexually abused at these boys' schools throughout his whole life. He was a product of the system through and through. And isn't it also interesting, life in prison with no parole for someone who never killed anybody? Wild how that happened.
At institutional schools for wayward kids, the National Training School for Boys here in Washington, D.C. had them. So it ranged from, I think, adolescent, pre-adolescent, through any age.
If you could describe, either one of you, the number of potential victims, if you could hazard a guess.
There were 149 programs that we know of that were subcontracted outside of...
149 separate programs.
So yeah, outside. And that's what we know of. Again, everything we know of is minuscule compared to what was really going on. So, I mean, that could have been into the tens of thousands. And I believe that's another reason that nothing was pursued, because if those people were compensated, it could have bankrupted.
Has there been any recent attempt?
There were so many people that if those people were compensated, it would bankrupt the government. Did you hear that?
To find, locate, identify victims of this?
Not that I know of.
I would just add that there's been considerable progress in this regard in Canada. There was MKULTRA research going on at a psychiatric hospital in Canada, and the Canadian government has made a real effort to try to find...
This is what I was talking about. There was specifically a woman who had postpartum depression that did interviews. Her family sued, I think a few years ago. They finally got a settlement from the government, and it was like something shitty, like $100,000.
Find out who the victims were, and also to compensate them and to provide them with medical treatment. So if we're looking for an example of a place where it was done better, even though it was on a much smaller scale, Canada would be a place to look.
So other than embarrassment to the federal government, maybe agencies involved, and particular individuals who are probably likely deceased at this point, what is the reason for the mass redaction of the information that we do have? Has any reasoning been given?
Shame?
I'm sorry?
Shame?
That's what I'm saying, other than embarrassment, but I think it stands to reason that probably the individuals involved in conducting and authorizing this activity are probably all deceased.
Sure.
At this point. Is there any reason to believe otherwise?
I make those arguments in my FOIA requests, but it doesn't get me anywhere. I don't know about you, Dr. Kinzer.
All right, my time's expired. I'll give.
That's
Thank
cool.
you, Representative
Pretty
Perry.
hate.
I'm now going to go to a second line of questions. So I'll be recognizing myself, followed by, I believe, Representative Bober and either of the representatives if they'd like to join in. I wanted to elaborate further, Dr. Kinzer, what you had stated about potentially there being bodies, the locations, Germany, because I'm going to reach out to the German government after this to get the ball rolling on that. If that.
Damn, she is on this. She said if there's possibly bodies there, we're getting in touch with them and we're going to get this ball rolling.
Is indeed the case. Can you just elaborate further on what you were hearing from people in that area, what they were saying, and then also to potential locations of bodies?
First of all, the memo that Chancellor Adenauer received is on the record. You can find that memo warning that these operations are going on. I did speak to people who lived in that area, and they all understood. Some of them had cooperated with an investigation by a German magazine, Der Spiegel, that called that house the CIA torture center. And in that article, it said there were deaths, but the number is not known. So it was a secret to us. But what we were doing in that house was really not even a secret to the people in the neighborhood. It reminds me of the bombing of Cambodia. It was a secret to us, but if you were living in Cambodia, you would have known about it. So I think there is fruitful ground for research looking into what happened in Germany and seeing what can be found out about these hugely destructive and devastating projects that were essentially systematic torture going on in this house and who knows how many others.
Just to confirm, too, when you found the initial transcripts with the Chancellor or correspondence, was there a response from the U.S. government to the Germans?
No. The U.S. government would possibly have advised Adenauer not to pursue it, but I don't think Adenauer would have even needed to be told that. He would see it, he would understand his close partnership with the United States made it impossible for him to criticize anything the U.S. was doing. Don't forget this was not so long after the end of the Second World War. So no, there was no effort by the United States ever to reveal anything about what happened in Germany. And in fact, one of the FOIA requests that I made that was never fulfilled, and one that I would urge you to pursue, is what was Sidney Gottlieb doing during 2 years in Germany? He went to Germany and went to live there as a case officer. I was never able to find out what did he do during 2 years in Germany. There were huge numbers of MKUltra experiments going on in Germany, including a number that were fatal. That would be a very interesting catch of documents to find.
We will definitely be following up. My next question would be for either Dr. Kinzer or Mr. O'Neill. Declassified CIA records have revealed that officers deployed overseas have used USAID funding as an official cover, or USAID as an official cover for operational work that had nothing to do with the mission of USAID, i.e. humanitarian aid, medical relief, etc. In some cases, CIA officers operated under USAID cover engaged in lethal activity in places such as Vietnam, running assassination missions during the war in country from 1965 to 1975. And since MKUltra seems to have found its origin in drug experiments conducted on prisoners overseas, and first by the SS in Nazi Germany and then by U.S. intelligence in camps captured from the Germans, do you believe that USAID may have been used overseas to further influence or further the MKUltra, for example, on prisoners of war?
You know, this really makes me mad because so many soldiers that came back from Vietnam were flipped off, spit on, and also fucking tested on. It's awful. It's just awful.
As part of USAID's mission was to administer drugs to the poor and needy populations, would the organization have abused its mandate by poisoning foreign populations or creating disassociated states for interrogation or torture?
I can't speak directly to AID, but it's certainly true that during this period, after the Second World War, the United States was using publicly announced and official U.S. government agencies to carry out covert action. We now know, for example, that 5% of all of the money appropriated for the Marshall Plan was diverted for covert activities. A number of U.S. agencies were used as cover by covert operatives, and that AID could have been one of them sounds very likely to me.
And the NIMH admitted to allowing itself to be used for covert funding of MKUltra experiments in the 1970s when the operation was disclosed.
Thank you. I now recognize Representative Burchett for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair.
I'm so sorry, Shortcake Girl. That is really sad.
Thank you all for being here. I remembered when
if it makes him feel any better, tell him that we all said thank you for his service. That makes me sad.
All the talk about MKUltra broke, and then they were talking about lawsuits, and there were lawsuits, and CIA and the federal government said that this didn't exist, and then they came back and said, well, it does exist, and then, but we're not doing it anymore. I guess my question to y'all first is, which lie do we believe?
Amen. I'm loving this. I'm loving this. Hey, Lacey. Lacey said, just stopping by to say hello. I'm watching the Tyler Robinson evaluation right now. Awesome. I'm going to be catching up on that later. I'm going to catch the highlights. Thank you for stopping in, Lacey. Everybody laughed. Oh, my God.
Back and said, well, it does exist, and then, but we're not doing it anymore. I guess my question to y'all first is, which lie do we believe? Because, thank you. Obviously, there was an open bar before this thing started, so thank y'all. But, Dr. Kinzer? Obviously, there was an open bar before this thing started, so thank y'all. But, Dr. Kinzer?
Oh, my God.
Hit your mic, brother. You're not on the mic. It's an old CIA trick. I'm just kidding.
I put myself in the place of...
This guy's kind of funny.
Mic, brother. You're not on the mic.
Wait, what?
Dr. Kinzer? Hit your mic, brother. You're not on the mic.
We need to clip that for Sinner because he's always freaking muted. We need to clip that for Sinner.
Dr. Kinzer? Hit your mic, brother. You're not on the mic. It's an old CIA trick. I'm just kidding.
I put myself in the place of one of those senior CIA officers, and I'm thinking to myself, like the ones back in the 1950s, well, other people must be doing this. We'd be falling behind if we don't do it. And nobody's looking over our shoulders, and that, I think, is your job. So I think there is a definite air of urgency and total secrecy. If any current research is going on, and if it's conducted in any comparable level of secrecy to the original MKUltra, it's very deeply secret.
But one thing you said, though, it's going to be hard for Congress to act when they're so dadgum compromised. Let's just be honest. I mean, y'all are in the business of twisting ears and telling us things that we've done, and that sways a lot of people up here. Somebody doesn't want to wreck a marriage or their business or lose this glamorous job that we have. And so I suspect that has a lot of play into it. Sorry to interrupt you. I apologize.
All I mean to say is that I think if there are such projects going on inside the U.S. government, there might be a sense that we can do this without any hostile supervision.
What are the possibilities that what we've learned in MKUltra, now that it has advanced so much to algorithms and the computer and getting to loners, that some of these loners could, through this just mass propagation of whatever you're doing, could cause someone to maybe take a shot at a president?
Oh, he said it.
I know there's a lot of speculation out there about the Butler shooting, and I guess even the Charlie Kirk shooting. I just hate to speculate because I don't know. I have no firsthand knowledge whether those guys were programmed through radio waves or through their computer activity, so I would never hazard a guess.
Whoa, he's talking about the Butler shooting, y'all. There it is.
Yes, except to say what I've already said, that they developed means that we've never been told about many, many years ago, and I imagine they've evolved to be much more effective now. So
Let me interrupt you one more time, and I apologize again. But don't you think that they could cast this broad net through these algorithms and other things, and maybe they don't know the exact person it's going to affect, but they know what type of person it's going to affect, and they know it's going to happen, and that way they can't predict when it's going to happen, but they think it will happen, and then that way they can sort of wash their hands of this whole thing and say, well, we didn't have anything to do with it, but in effect they really did, because they put this out there, and they continue to put it out there to whatever method you're talking about. Go ahead, guys. I'm sorry. Ma'am, if you want to jump in.
She's with NIH.
Okay. Doctor, go ahead.
It sounds to me like you're just...
They're just picking on her. She's NIH. She's
Ma'am, if you want to jump in.
She's with NIH.
Okay. Doctor, go ahead.
It sounds to me like you're describing something like the Martin Luther King assassination.
Oh, bing bong. Bing bong. Listen to this. Listen to this. We know that the FBI and CIA had Martin Luther King killed. But listen to this.
FBI didn't carry it out, but it created such a climate, just denouncing King as the most dangerous man in America and putting out all this material about how he was helping communists, that they must have thought, it's going to filter down. Somebody will take action, and then we can say we didn't have anything to do with it.
And James Earl Ray was a
Yep.
third-rate thief. He made an incredible shot, 1 foot on a commode, 1 foot in a bathtub, leaning out of a window, basically. And the next day, or that afternoon, all the shrubbery was cut in front of the flop house he was staying in. There's a lot on that one that will never be discussed. I have some friends that were there, so I guess I'm on pretty close to firsthand knowledge. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'm probably going to get audited when I walk out of the room. I know it. So thank you.
Damn, he's going to get audited? Yep, Malcolm X, President Kennedy, Black Panthers, absolutely.
Chair Lady, I yield back my 4 seconds.
Thank you, Rep. Burchett. I would like to now recognize Representative Boebert for 5 minutes.
Thank you, and I would love to let you gentlemen just talk some here, but when we're bringing up operations like Naomi and MKULTRA, there's Operation Mockingbird that was going on at the same time as MKULTRA, and it really ties into what Congressman Burchett was talking about with radio waves, where we have these like a Venn diagram of individual people and the military casting a broader net. So you have the radio waves, computer activity,
Freaking radio waves? The fuck? Like, this is real, people. Oh my God, like, is he Scott H? I like him.
People and the military casting a broader net. So you have the radio waves, computer activity, the Operation Mockingbird, the programming that is taking place. So what do you see in relation to what was happening then and what we are seeing now that could be types of the same kind of programs and even using direct energy weapons or the like? Mr. O'Neill, you could.
Direct energy weapons? What would that entail? I'm going to look that up. Direct energy weapons. What would that be? Electromagnetic energy, such as high energy lasers and microwaves, to disable or destroy targets at the speed of light. God.
You can begin.
I would just like to say one thing. There was an objective outlined in the early proposals for MKUltra to do experimentation to see whether they could do mass conversion, convert entire populations. I think that had something to do with the France incident that you were talking about earlier. Again, today it's all speculation, but back then they were trying to use psychological means to see how you could influence people's thoughts. And Mockingbird played into that, which, if people don't know, that was where they had CIA assets or co-opted people in the media who would write basically propaganda and try to control the thoughts and beliefs of the population to what the CIA needed. And is it still going on today? I would be surprised if it wasn't.
Sure, I think we saw it even during COVID with all of the NIH funding that went to COVID and the Wuhan lab and then everything that came out of that, trying to make people believe in something that wasn't there. Dr. Kinzer, do you have anything on this?
I would say only that in the modern age, maybe radio waves and drugs are not necessary to control people's minds. We have such a great advertising, propaganda, press, social media collaboration that certain opinions are marginalized and real debate is frustrated because people are not given access to full amounts of information. So that's a way of controlling the minds of populations. It doesn't even require sophisticated electronic or psychopharmacological means.
Jesus, that's
Anything
scary.
else you'd like to add for our next 2 minutes here? That we haven't, maybe you have answers to questions we haven't asked.
I would just like to reiterate something that I said in response to your earlier question, and that is that there's a reason why conspiracy theories are so widespread in America. It has to do with the disassociation between what we say we are and do and what we really are and do. This has become more and more clear to more and more people. Therefore, they're suspicious of nefarious dealings by the U.S., and they're also suspicious of other things that aren't nefarious at all. But there's just this mentality that is created by the covert sphere, and that is what makes people realize that things that used to seem really far-fetched are not so far-fetched after all.
Yes,
That's
well,
right.
Congress, we create these agencies and we even provide their funding. We appropriate that funding, and then they come before us often and are too big to even answer simple questions that we have and be held to account. So it does cause for a lot of deceit, a lot of doubt in the American people, and certainly within us as members of Congress when these agencies refuse to answer to us, the branch of government that actually creates them and provides their funding, and then of course the American taxpayer whose money is being stolen to fund all of their programs and agencies. So I think that would be another reason how these conspiracy theories grow, because government has grown so big it won't answer to the people. Maybe they just think the people are too dumb to understand, but certainly we want to get answers to the people, and I appreciate you gentlemen for being here today. Madam Chair, I yield.
Thank you, Representative Boebert. Representative Burleson, do you have any further questions? Okay, I now recognize Representative Burleson for 5 minutes.
Mr. O'Neill, going back to Charles Manson and the Helter Skelter incident, can you explain how in the world someone who is an illiterate musician that seemed to be not exactly the brightest person somehow became a cult leader and was able to,
Here we go, Manson.
inspire all of these individuals to do crazy things?
Unfortunately, I spent 20 years trying to find out how that happened, and what I was able to prove was that from the moment Manson was released from federal prison in 1967, he violated his parole, went to the Bay Area without permission, and was immediately put under the supervision of a federal parole officer who basically gave him leniency as he gathered his group of followers, gave them drugs, dominated them, turned them into more or less subservient robots who would do anything he said. All that happened under the watchful eye of a parole officer named Roger Smith, who was also doing drug research at the same clinic that Jolly West had set up his operation to recruit subjects. All the way until 1969, when Manson finally ordered the murders that he was later convicted of, he had been arrested repeatedly for escalating crimes, beginning with petty thievery, stealing cars, and then rape, attempted murder, drug possession. Each time, not only wasn't he prosecuted, his parole wasn't violated. So the federal government, in some capacity, enabled him to do what he did and flourish until these crimes happened.
Yeah, that's effed up. Really? I mean, he wasn't violating his parole going out of state? Thank you so much, Cindy, for your super chat. Jay, check into a female scientist that has video proof on her hands with high wave energy damage on her hands. She presumably committed suicide later. Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to look into all this stuff you guys are mentioning. It's hard to believe this is actually real. But I think now would be a time to go into our second clip, which is called The Good Soldier. And this is going to be about Tim McVeigh meeting with Jolly West. This is about 5 minutes. Take a listen to this.
Tim McVeigh was honorably discharged from the Army 3 years before the bombing, leaving behind an exemplary service record. After a brief but intense combat experience in the Persian Gulf War, McVeigh tried out for the Special Forces. He pronounced himself unable to continue just a few days into the testing and returned to his unit demoralized and, some say, a changed man.
Through being able to see Timothy McVeigh's letters to his defense team, this is really behind-the-scenes stuff, letters to his family, the memos that the defense team writes, which detail his mood from day to day, some of the medical reports while he's in prison, which detail his thoughts. On the one hand, you have the McVeigh who's mad at the government. On the other hand, you have the McVeigh who works for the government. The defense team themselves could never obtain his full military records, and that even though they were ordered by a judge.
Where does he turn up? He turns up in Buffalo.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? His defense team could not get their hands on his military record. How does that go down? And he's the quickest one killed on death row, I tell you.
McVeigh who works for the government. The defense team themselves could never obtain his full military records, and that even though they were ordered by a judge.
Where does he turn up? He turns up in Buffalo, New York. And while he's up there, he creates what's known as a legend. Now, legend is when you go undercover or you get sheep dipped. Sheep dipped means you change your identity, you change your who you work for, and become a new person. Changes his personality up there, and all of a sudden he's ranting and raving about the Turner Diaries and overthrowing the government and all this other nonsense to where they're going. This guy's a wacko. He works up there 6 months and disappears. Where do we find him again? going into militia meetings and doing the same thing, making sure he's noticed.
If you look at Lee Harvey Oswald and Tim McVeigh and other patsies, they're very similar. They're in the military, they've got security clearances.
McVeigh wrote a letter to his sister, who turned it over to the FBI, in which he admits that he was selected out of Special Forces training to participate in covert operations, to help run drugs to fund these operations, and to assassinate security risks. Mere bravado, or was McVeigh telling the truth?
The FBI had put wiretaps on the McVeigh family's phone after the bombing. And so I'm reading this conversation back and forth between his mother and his sister. There's actually a few of these conversations where they say, we don't understand why the FBI won't listen to us and why the media is reporting that Timothy McVeigh washed out or dropped out of Special Forces. They're saying, no, we were told that he was still active in the military and that he was working on these covert missions.
And he told his family, he told many others, Terry Nichols has signed an affidavit, that McVeigh believed he was out there infiltrating militias and right-wing groups and was preparing to set them up. And then, of course, he later learned that he was the guy that got set up.
If McVeigh was working for the government, what are we to make of the involvement of Terry Nichols, the only convicted accomplice?
When Nichols had been convicted, but not given the death penalty, in federal court and in state court, he could not be tried again. He wrote to then Attorney General Ashcroft and said, come and see me. Come and see me and I'll tell you all about it.
In his declaration, Nichols stated that crucial parts of this terrorist attack remain hidden from the American people, especially the identities of others unknown who collaborated with McVeigh in the bombing. McVeigh told Nichols that he had been recruited to perform undercover missions while in the U.S. Army. Always the good soldier, McVeigh revealed only one name in his chain of command, Larry Potts, Assistant Director of the FBI and the lead agent on the Ruby Ridge catastrophe in 1992, in which a U.S. Marshal and 14-year-old Sam Weaver and his mother Vicki Weaver were killed. Larry Potts later played an active role in the siege at Waco. McVeigh was angry at Potts for going off script and changing targets at the last minute. Another telling clue is on Tim McVeigh's death certificate. Despite being officially out of the military for 9 years and having held many different jobs since then, his listed occupation was U.S. Army. So why did Tim McVeigh take the fall for his accomplices? Perhaps the intervention of a known psychological warfare expert explains his silence till the end.
The record clearly shows that Dr. Jolyon West consulted Timothy McVeigh's defense team. Dr. West had previously been a psychiatrist and consulted for Patty Hearst, Saran, and Jack Ruby.
We know that Jolyon West was considered to be the #2 mind control expert in North America under only Dr. Ewing Cameron.
Dr. West came under a lot of scrutiny during his time as chief of psychiatry.
Now I'm going to put another piece of the puzzle together for you, okay? So this Cameron guy, Ewan Cameron, watch this. This is crazy. Cameron, psychological test Canada. Let me show you this really quick. I'm sure she'll come up. This Dr. Cameron, hold on. There's so many videos on this stuff, but this is the lady I'm talking about right here. Check this out really quick. Okay, we got origins, Dr. Ewan Cameron's experiment. Okay, here we go, right here.
And director of the Allen Memorial Institute. The CIA secretly funded the medical experiments through a front in New York City called, of all things, the Society for the Protection of Human Ecology.
So there you go. There's one of their fake foundations. They did this in Canada. Listen again. Listen again.
Director of the Allen Memorial Institute. The CIA secretly funded the medical experiments through a front in New York City called, of all things, the Society for the Protection of Human Ecology. Documents show that the agency had been impressed with earlier work done at McGill in sensory deprivation, work that was useful in designing sophisticated torture techniques later on. But at the time, brainwashing looked even more promising, and Dr. Cameron was the perfect one to carry out the work, an American citizen with a world-class reputation operating outside of the United States.
Hey, Gina.
Dr. Cameron certainly had the credentials. At various times, president of the Canadian, the American, and even the World Psychiatric Association.
These are the days and hours are the occasions.
In an address to colleagues from around the world, Cameron showed that he certainly knew the potential of the human mind, for good and bad.
And it is his mind, no less, which may destroy mankind.
Val Orlico came to the Allen for her postpartum depression.
Everybody in the hospital was very much in awe of Dr. Cameron, and he strode the halls like a giant. And people would say, oh, there but for God goes God. And to me, I thought, how could he possibly ever take me for a patient? Who am I? I mean, this great man who's done all these marvelous things. And boy, I better work hard, and I better do everything that he tells me to do. And, you know, I don't want to lose this opportunity to get well.
Like Mrs. Orlico, Mrs. Janine Huard of Montreal came to Dr. Cameron depressed after childbirth. The depression was made worse by a hearing problem that coincided with the birth of her child. She, too, was in awe of Dr. Cameron.
He was a very, very impressive man. And I was told he was the best doctor in North America. So he would look at you a few minutes, ask you a few questions, and then proceed with the treatments.
But I never saw him once in all the times that I saw him that I wasn't afraid. Every time I went down to his office, I would shake with fear. And every time I'd see him coming down the hall, I'd shake with fear. But I adored him.
Dr. Elliot Emanuel knew Cameron.
He was an authoritarian, ruthless, power-hungry, nervous, tense, angry man. Not very nice.
At Ravenscraig, Dr. Cameron went further with drugs and electric shock treatments than any of the U.S. researchers in the MKULTRA project dared. His aim was to wipe the mind clean. Then he would implant new messages by forcing the patient to listen to a hypnotic repetition as many as 250,000 times. This was called psychic driving. Most of the drugs used in the program were experimental, and some dangerous. There was the tranquilizer Artane, a paralysis-inducing anectine, and curare, which pygmies tipped their arrows with to paralyze victims. Bulbocapnan, another experimental tranquilizer, and lysergic acid diethylmide, the hallucinogen LSD. In her room at Ravenscraig, Mrs. Orlico waited for her first treatment.
Well, I saw a tray with hypodermic, with a needle, a syringe, and the card on it had my name, so I looked a little more closely, and it was lysergic acid diethylamide. And my husband was a druggist, and I knew a lot of drugs, but I'd never heard of that one. And so I phoned a friend, and who was a psychiatric nurse, and I said, do you know what it is? And she said, I never heard of it. But she had a friend who was a psychiatrist, so she phoned her friend, and she called me back, and she said, he said that this stuff causes poisonous psychosis. She said he said not to take it. Well, I thought, you know, he's a very Freudian psychiatrist and doesn't believe in any medication of any kind. And after all, here's Dr. Cameron. I mean, he's the big doctor, and he's, you know, he's known all over the world, and he wouldn't do anything that would harm me, etc. And so.
And you have to keep in mind that this woman just had a baby. Her baby was unable to bond with her because she was put in this hospital for postpartum depression and was put under this MKULTRA. Hey, reality.
I took the injection, and I didn't like it. And it really did create a poisonous psychosis.
We're not mean.
LSD, with all its frightening mental images, was scarcely known at the time.
Hey, Debbie.
But the CIA secretly brought some in from Switzerland, where it had just been developed.
The room became very distorted, and I thought my bones were all melting. And I just wanted to scream that I wanted to get out of there. And I saw the squirrels outside, and I thought, they're not the squirrels, I'm the squirrel. I'm in this cage, and I can't get out. And I started to throw myself from side to side in the room. And I couldn't write. They had given me a pencil and paper and asked me to write down, but I couldn't write. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't focus. I don't know. It was like some kind of funny hell I'd fallen into, and I couldn't get out. And I don't know how long that went on. It was just
horrible,
a terrible nightmare. And I just felt that my life was threatened. I could never go back to what I'd been.
Robert Logie of Vancouver was 18 when he came to the Allen complaining of trembling and severe leg pains, diagnosed as psychosomatic. Like Mrs. Orlico and Mrs. Huard, he had no inkling he was to be part of a CIA experiment.
The LSD was very horrifying, and they gave it to me for about 12 or 15 times. One minute I would see the doctor there, the next minute I wouldn't see him there, and they were asking me all kinds of questions, and I remember them telling me that I was getting smaller and smaller, and I really felt myself getting smaller. And they were bringing me back in time, way back, you know. At one point I almost felt like I was just about to be born. really that far back in memory, and they were really probing, asking all kinds of questions, and I felt I didn't have any control. I had to answer. I didn't feel I had any control. I was completely, like they had complete control over me.
Mrs. Huard, like the others, was forced to pay for the so-called treatment, massive electric shocks, and all the drugs.
They would give me as much as 40 pills a day. And I would ask the nurse, what is that? They would say it's a new drug, and they only name it by a number.
What did all those drugs do to you? How did they make
Well,
you feel?
I was very, very strong, well-powered. So these drugs kind of desensitize me. They would lower my reactions. They would lower my resistance.
As well as the experimental drugs and massive electric shock treatments, Mrs. Huard was subjected to psychic driving. Hypnotic-like messages were repeated over and over to a sleeping patient, sometimes for as long as 16 hours in a row.
Awful.
They were a key part of the mind control experiment. This is how Mrs. Huard remembers one of the messages.
Why are you running away from your responsibility, Janine? Why, Janine? Why? Janine, why are you running away from your responsibility? Janine? Why are you running away from your responsibility?
Jesus, this is like torture.
I would try very strongly not to let my mind be capturing all the messages, but they would lower my resistance so much with the heavy drugs, but I couldn't do otherwise than listen.
Did you ever ask them how any of this was making you better?
No, I didn't ask questions. I would just say, I don't want to go through it again. And I would cry. I didn't want it, you know.
Poor lady.
I knew it. Way down in my heart, I knew it wasn't good. But, you know, how could you fight? You're in a hospital where it's supposed to be the best, with the best doctors. So, what can you do?
I'd say, I can't take it anymore. I can't stand it. I don't think this is doing me any good. I feel worse. And he'd walk down the hall a little way with me and put his arm on my shoulder. And come on now, Lassie, you know you're going to do it. And finally I'd say, well, okay. And off we'd go to my room, and he would give me another injection and then pat me on the shoulder, and off he'd be again. I had LSD, I believe, a total of 14 times.
Jesus.
And sometimes there would be 4 days between the injections, and sometimes there would be one consecutive day after the other. And some of them I managed to write down things in my notes to Dr. Cameron.
A newly declassified CIA document shows there was at least one voice of protest at the agency as the experiments got underway. One agent wrote, "Does Project Officer approve these immoral and inhuman tests? I suggest that all who are in favor of the above intended operation volunteer their heads for use in Dr. So-and-so's noble project."
Wow, so one person spoke up. I wonder what happened to that one person.
The names were deleted. In her hospital room, a terrified Mrs. Orlico tried to hide like a child at the sound of Dr. Cameron's approaching footsteps.
Oh, my God.
I heard him coming, and I hid in the washroom in my room. And I thought, well, I'll go and sit on the toilet. Nobody will see me. Anyhow, that didn't work because he knocked on the door, and he said, now, come on, Lassie, you know you're in there, and come on, you come out and let me give you your injection. And I said, no, I'm not taking any more injections. I can't do it. I don't care if I die. I can't do it anymore because this is killing me, and that's all there is to it. I can't do it. Well, he wasn't very happy about it. And, however, after a little discussion, he turned on his heel and left the room.
The electric shock treatments were administered on an unprecedented scale. It was called de-patterning. The mind was short-circuited so the psychic driving hypnotic messages could be planted on a clean slate. There is now no known use of electric shocks on such a scale, even in Soviet mental asylums where political crimes are punished. Psychiatrist and former colleague of Dr. Cameron, Dr. Elliot Emanuel.
As you probably know, electroshock treatment has been given for depression for something like 40 years now. It's a very successful and useful treatment for severe depression that doesn't respond to other things. But de-patterning is a use of electroshock treatment in a totally different way, in which instead of giving the shocks, say, 2 or 3 times a week, they're given 2 or 3 times a day for 3 or 4 weeks, reducing the patient to a sort of animal, vegetable state, from which it's hoped that they would recover in a more healthy state of mind. It didn't work.
I was there for a while, and I thought, I don't want to stay here, and I started to run away from the hospital, and they grabbed me, and then they put me on sleep treatment. And now they kept...
He tried to run away, and they grabbed him and put him on sleeping treatment.
you asleep for 23 days.
Oh, my God. They kept you asleep for 23 days?
And while I was asleep, they were shocking the heck out of me with electric shocks and playing tapes.
There was another lady who had the same kind of psychic driving that I did, and she was a very wiry, slender lady, and with lots of pep and zip, you know, and she'd go to the dances and this and that. And one day she just wasn't there. And when we asked where she went, they said, oh, well, you know, she's gone to another hospital. Well, sometime later, I was in the day hospital, and I happened to ask a nurse if she'd heard what had happened to this lady. And she said, oh, that's her sitting over there. And I looked, and there was a fat lady that just looked like she was made out of dough. She didn't know me. She didn't know herself. She didn't know anybody. She was gone. Now, that's a death.
Did you ever try and get away from there? Did you ever say, I'm just not going back?
Listen to this.
I tried. I was home for the weekend. And I had a pass for the weekend. That's how they call it. So when I was there, I said, I'm not going back there. So I telephoned, or somebody else in the house telephoned, and they said, if you're not coming back, we're sending the police after you. So I remember being so upset. I was crying. I didn't want to go.
They said that we're going to send the police after you if you don't go back.
And it was really
Miss
like a
Margaret, I'm so
concentration
sorry.
camp.
She said it was like a concentration camp. Unbelievable. Okay, we got a little in the weeds, but we're going to finish this McVeigh one. It's almost done, and then we'll get back to the hearing.
Ewing Cameron.
Dr. West came under a lot of scrutiny during his time as chief of psychiatry at UCLA because he was proposing using prisoners, the general community, poor people, minorities as test subjects. And then West's career continues to flourish through the 80s, and he continues his research into hypnosis, branches out into terrorism and cults, even consulting and later writing about the Waco massacre.
Dr. John Smith, that's even his real name, was the protege of Dr. Jolyon West, Mr. Mind Control, and he was McVeigh's doctor in prison. Today it's reported that he is one of the head psychiatrists, one of the head doctors at Guantanamo Bay. The fact that you've got the protege, one of the fathers of modern mind control, now being the head of psychiatry at Guantanamo Bay, which is an admitted mind control laboratory, that's even mainstream news. I mean, you couldn't make this up in a spy novel. Truth is always stranger than fiction, and it's all hidden in plain view.
So there you go. There you go. The next video that played. All right. It's mind-boggling. Okay, let's keep going here.
And in my book, I make a case, and it's a theoretical case, that it was part of an operation called Chaos, also with the CIA, that we haven't talked about today because it really doesn't have anything to do with drug research, but it was created to neutralize what the government believed was a revolution that was happening in America in the 60s, beginning with the anti-war movement and then the black militancy movement and the Panthers. So it's kind of a big stew of a cauldron of possibilities that Manson emerged from all that when I don't think he should have.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you have an individual, Jolly West, who was working with this parole officer. Do you think the parole officer was making the connection so that the drugs were then flowing through?
Well, the parole officer was at the same time he was supervising Manson's parole, running a research project called the Amphetamine Research Project out of that clinic, and that was studying amphetamines and violence and drugs and group behavior and gangs in the Bay Area. Again, I hate to speculate. I know it sounds like a cop-out, but when you see the tentacles that cross paths with Manson when he got to Los Angeles as well, I believe that he was he was manipulated and at the very least given freedom to do what he did while he was being observed.
And then the same individual, Jolly West, ends up in Oklahoma, correct? So that's where was he operating out of Oklahoma for during this time with Mr.
When he
Manson?
contracted with the CIA, he was at Lackland Air Force Base. He was a chief psychiatrist at the hospital, so he began his experiments there. A year after the letter that I quoted in my statement where he was describing what he wanted to do, a year later on July 3rd, 1954, a 3-year-old girl was abducted and found later in a gravel pit, murdered, and next to a car that had been abandoned. And the search party that found the little girl's body was approached by a man who was an airman at the base, and he asked them where he was and how he had gotten there. He was arrested for the murder and described by the military officers who had him in custody as being in a trance or dazed. He didn't have any drugs in his system. He didn't recognize his wife when she was brought to see him. And at his trial, where Jolly West was his advising psychiatrist who examined him, it emerged that he had actually been being treated at the hospital at Lackland in an experimental program to cure his chronic, debilitating migraine headaches. And he was
Oh my God.
executed 4 years later.
And then
He was executed 4 years later. This is someone who I think he just said was in the service and was being treated by Jolly West, and then went on to take a 3-year-old and kill a 3-year-old.
And years later, he ends up volunteering to handle the Jack Ruby.
West does, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So
Wow. So that happened, and then 3 years later, he volunteered to see Jack Ruby, an airman. Thanks, Gladys. Oh, my God.
To handle the Jack Ruby.
West does, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So just before we wrap up, is it in your expert opinion that Jack Ruby and Manson were assets of the intelligence agency, specifically pertaining to MKULTRA? Were they MKULTRA victims?
Yeah, theoretically, Manson, I've never been able to prove absolutely. Jack Ruby, I believe, this is something else. The Warren Commission investigation, on the Warren Commission was Alan Dulles, the former CIA director, who authorized and ran MKUltra until he was fired by President Kennedy. The liaison to the committee for the CIA, who handled the information coming from the CIA back and forth to the Warren Commission, was Richard Helms, who was a direct supervisor of Jolly West. They knew who West was. They knew that what West was capable of and what they had paid him to do and what he had reported to them that he could do, including inducing mental disorders in people. That was never disclosed to the commission as far as anyone knows. So I believe that West was put in there to keep Jack Ruby from telling his story.
Wow. In closing, I just want to thank you all for being here today, and we will be following up, Dr. Kinzer, on your request to fully redact. I'll be following personally with the director of the CIA, the MKUltra files that we do have. Also, as I noted earlier, there will be more that will be declassified, specifically pertaining to newly found records that were located in what we were discussing earlier. I did also want to just state that, for the record, in regards to what statements were made earlier regarding the German government, we will also be following up on that. If there are indeed people that were victims of this that have been buried, we would like to know who those people are and who their families are as well, in order to correct the historical wrongdoings of this government. Without further ado, I would like to state that all members have 5 legislative days within to submit materials and additional written questions for the witnesses. They'll be then forwarded to them. If there are no further business without objection, the task force stands adjourned.
We got through it. What do you guys think? I have one more video for you, though. Truth is stranger than fiction nowadays, huh? I can't why wonder. That's why I have my tinfoil Hershey's Kiss hat, because I can't wrap my brain around it. I'm trying to. But there's a lot of shit that connects. And then you think about this going into modern day, right? Like, what the hell? We will, Kelly Mack. She said we need to keep up on the welfare of these witnesses. We will definitely keep up on the updates and see where they go. But I have one more video that I found interesting. And this is from Joe Rogan. I think you guys will find this interesting too. This is about the Unabomber. Take a listen to this. It's wild. Hold on, I'm going to speed it up. Oh, it is sped up. Okay, here we go.
The Joe Rogan experience.
Yeah, to never be around other humans.
Do you know what happened to the Unabomber? Do you know how that happened?
The brother?
Yeah.
Because he was pedantic.
Oh, yeah, it was that. But it was also the Unabomber himself. Ted Kaczynski was part of the Harvard LSD studies.
Was he?
Yeah, they cooked his brain.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a documentary about it called The Net.
Someone wrote a great tweet where they go, plot twist, Greta Thunberg grows up to become the Unabomber in a redemption arc. I'm like, that is hilarious. Because he was a violent environmentalist. And a very bright man.
He's a professor at Berkeley. So he went to school at Harvard. They put him in the Harvard LSD studies. They cooked his fucking dome. And then he disappeared, went to Berkeley, worked as a professor to earn enough money so he could buy a cabin and implement his plan to kill everybody who was involved in technology. So he'd...
Yeah, this the Unabomber is a very interesting character. But he got his at Harvard under a doctor, I think it was Henry. Let me see. Henry Murray. Dr. Henry Murray was a Harvard psychologist who subjected Ted Kaczynski to ethically controversial, high-stress psychological experiences during his college years. But you got to remember, too, that Ted Kaczynski was only like 16 when he went to Harvard. 15? Wait, let me see. Unabomber. Okay. I think he was like 15. I want to make sure, though. 16. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, was just 16 when he entered Harvard University on a scholarship in 1958. A brilliant mathematics prodigy. He had skipped multiple grades in school and graduated high school at the age of 15. Back to y'all's gifted program. That fits right in with what you guys were talking about. This pink drink and the gifted program at schools. Yikes. Ted Kaczynski, here's a random fun fact. His IQ was reported to be 167 based on a test he took as a child. Crazy, huh? All right, let's keep going.
Stop this takeover of the human race, which probably is true.
Yeah. John Waters, the director, he has a replica of the Unabomber's cabin as a room in his house. Isn't that great? I love that.
Who's got the real cabin?
Oh, that's a good question.
It
The
was
FBI?
at a museum, I think, that actually just closed. So I don't know where it's going to go now. There was a museum called the Newseum in
Oh, yeah,
DC.
New York.
I think it just closed.
Yeah.
They couldn't.
Traveling
get people
exhibit.
out.
Wait, they took the whole cabin and reconstructed it?
I believe I've seen pictures of it. Yeah.
Oh.
We need to find it.
Wow, that's really cool.
We need to find it.
I love stuff like that.
I do too.
I did an article years ago about all these relics. Like, where's Monica Lewinsky's dress? And like, she's got it hidden somewhere.
Do you think she does?
Yeah, the article people did research. She still has it somewhere.
Oh my God! What a nightmare for poor Bill. You get your dick sucked in '94, and this lady's still carrying that jizz-stained dress. Like, Jesus Christ, lady, let it go. He's probably going, well, she's probably throwing it away by now. No,
listen.
Okay,
Closed,
I don't know.
last week.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
that could have been out here, bro. Just each other. Manifesto.
Yeah, original copy.
You know, he's a dick for saying that. Thank you for becoming. Oh, thank you for. Oh, my goodness. Look at that. Northern Lights, Northern Beans. 35 months. Thank you so much for your continued support. And I hope you had a great vacation. Glad you're back.
It's very smart.
I read parts of it. That's one of the things that's disturbing. Is it's like well thought out, and also the argument is sound. Technology,
gonna skip.
There's like a new
interdivisional cooperation, FBI. Dun, dun, dun.
Just a propaganda house.
Wow.
Oh, God.
So they wanted to get. So he was in Montana when he was blowing
Yeah,
everybody up.
someone tried to buy the land, I guess, or it was for sale at one time. But whoever runs this museum tried to get a hold of it, and I guess the FBI said we're going to keep it.
Yeah, I can understand why they would want to, right?
Of course, yeah.
It's probably very valuable. People probably will go to the FBI museum specifically just to see that cabin.
No one wants to go to the FBI museum otherwise. Would you go to the FBI museum?
No.
It's gonna
His
be-
brother suspect that he was doing it all
Well, you know
along
why?
before the manifesto, or did he read the manifesto and then?
Well, because the Unabomber, as a kid, was always annoyed by people saying you could have your cake and eat it too. Because he's like, no, it's you can eat your cake and have it too. And the Unabomber used that phrase, air quotes, correctly. And the guy's like, that's my brother. And that's how they figured it out, because he was being a pedantic dick. Yeah. So everyone who's correcting people on spelling on Twitter, shut up and relax.
Oh, that's crazy. I thought he just recognized the style of writing.
No, I mean, double check me, but I'm 90%
makes
sure
sense.
this is correct.
You're saying that now.
Eat your cake and have it too.
It's actually ringing a bell.
Yeah.
God damn.
It's
But imagine like that if he was a normal guy and they just filled him up with acid and it made him say, "Oh my God, the technology's going to take over." And he's just started his calling in life is to kill the people. They're advancing technology with bombs.
When you're that smart, you're already kind of tripping, because
Yes.
regular people don't seem like the same thing as you do.
Right. And maybe a little schizophrenic, and then they fill him up with a fucking half a gallon of acid.
Like, how much did they give him? Do you know?
Who knows? They were experimenting with people.
I'm sure it's not going to be small doses.
Do you know what Operation Midnight Climax is?
No.
It's one of my favorite fucked up CIA experiments they ever did. They went to brothels, and they set up a brothel with all these prostitutes and these johns, and they dosed all the guys and used hidden cameras.
Oh my God. And do you know what else?
So, because the guys couldn't talk about it. Because, like, what happened to you, Harry? Somebody gave me a Mickey. They slipped me a Mickey, and I had a bad time. Where'd this happen, Harry? Oh, I don't know. I guess I was at the diner or something. You can't say, I went to the whorehouse trying to get my dick sucked, and they gave me acid, these assholes. You can't say that.
And we've been...
Okay, we're going to get off that. He's a fucking asshole. But look at this, you guys, about the Unabomber. This is crazy. He says, or they say here, Kaczynski first came to the attention of the FBI in 1978 with the explosion of his first primitive homemade bomb at a Chicago university. Over the next 17 years, it's almost like how they watched Manson. They just let him do shit. That was Joe Rogan Experience. 17 years? I had no idea that he was doing this for 17 years. And they couldn't find him? Or did they know who he was? Weird. Over the next 17 years, he mailed or hand-delivered a series of increasingly sophisticated bombs that killed 3 Americans and injured nearly 24 more. Along the way, he sowed fear and panic, even threatening to blow up airliners in a flight. Ooh, thank you. Thank you for the gifted golden gloves. Welcome into the Truth Seekers. In 1979, an FBI-led task force that included the ATF and U.S. Postal Service was formed to investigate the Unabomb case, codenamed for the university and airline targets. Unabomb. We know they were already working with the universities. Stop this. Listen to this. The task force would grow to more than 150 full-time investigators, analysts, and others. In search of clues, the team made every possible forensic exam of recovered bomb components and studied the lives of victims in minute detail. Oh my gosh, Beans, thank you for the 5 gifted. Welcome in, Vision Blue, Jennifer, Denise, do you still hate me? And Wispy73, welcome to the Truth Seekers. Oh my God. These efforts proved little use in identifying the bomber, who took pains to leave no forensic evidence, building his bombs essentially from scrap materials. And the victims were chosen randomly from library research. We felt confident that the Unabomber had been raised in Chicago and later lived in Salt Lake City and San Francisco. He really is interesting, Scott. This turned out to be true. But we can't find Nancy. But they felt confident that he had been raised in Chicago, later lived in Salt Lake and San Francisco, and this turned out to be true. Oh my God. Amazing. Amazing work. His true occupation proved more elusive, with theories ranging from aircraft mechanic to scientist. Even the sex was not certain, although investigators believed the bomber was most likely male. They also investigated several female suspects. I wonder who the female suspects were. How come we don't know that? Who were the female bomber suspects? Were they also part of MKULTRA? The fuck? The big break in the case came in 1995. The Unabomber sent us a 35,000-word essay claiming to explain his motives and views of the ills of modern society. After much debate and wisdom of giving in to terrorists, FBI Director Louis Freeh and the Attorney General Janet Reno approved the task force recommendation to publish the essay. in hopes that a reader could identify the author. His manifesto is super long, by the way. After the manifesto appeared in the Washington Post, thousands of people suggested possible suspects. One stood out. David Kaczynski, described as troubled brother Ted, who had grown up in Chicago, taught at the University of California at Berkeley, where 2 of the bombs had been placed, then lived for a small time in Salt Lake City before settling permanently into the primitive 10 by 14 cabin that the 2 brothers constructed together near Lincoln, Nebraska. Most importantly, David provided letters and documents written by his brother. The linguistic analysis determined that the author of those papers and the manifesto were certainly the same, but they couldn't figure out who wrote the Ramsey ransom note. Okay, I need my hat back. No, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it.
It's a beautiful day to be an American, man.
I'm not buying it. When combined with the facts gleaned from the bombings and Kaczynski's life, that analysis provided the basis for a search warrant. On April 3rd, 1996, investigators arrested Ted and combed his cabin. There they found a wealth of bomb components, journal pages that included, he told on himself basically, Kaczynski's reign of terror was over. His new home, following his guilty plea in January of 98, an isolated cell in a supermax prison in Colorado. And guess what? That's where Terry Nichols sits as well. You know, McVeigh's accomplice. He is too isolated in the freaking supermax. And guess what? He wasn't even there on the day of the bombing. He was in Kansas.
Just a shot of tequila and a nice blunt.
How can you justify that? He's sitting in the damn supermax. It's crazy. So look at this. This is the FBI experience. This is so commercial and so goofy, but I'm going to play it. Watch this. They reconstructed his cabin. Just watch. It's bizarre. Annoying. Now tell me, why would they save this cabin unless they weren't proud of their fucking work? Like, what's the point of this? Do we not have other things to be doing than recreating his fucking cabin? And what is going on here?
They're at the home of Theodore Kaczynski, the man who had become known to the world as the unabomber. That knock was nearly 20 years in the making. The investigation into Kaczynski had started back in 1978 after he'd left the first of his homemade explosive devices in a parking lot near the University of Illinois in Chicago. To catch the brilliant recluse who had been disciplined about leaving few clues, the FBI had to rethink its investigative strategy.
Oh, that started playing. Yeah, isn't that weird? Right. Like, how about we build some houses for the vets? Hey, Susan. Makes me wonder about Luigi. Yeah, it makes you wonder about a lot of things, huh? I mean, 17 years. Look at all these things he did. So the first bomb was Chicago. And then another Northwestern University student opened up a box that had a bomb. And then in 79 also, there was a bomb on American Airlines. United Airlines president opened a package with a bomb. A bomb wrapped in brown paper is discovered in the hallway of a building at the University of Utah in 81. Vanderbilt University, 82. Break room of Corey Hall at the University of California, 82. Another one at the University of California, Berkeley in 85. The Boeing Fabrication Division in Washington in 85. U of M in 85. How the fuck did this guy get all around and be a professor? The fuck? 85, Sacramento computer store. Killed the owner. 87, another one at a Salt Lake City computer store. Now in 93, University of California, a genetic scientist. 93, a computer scientist from Yale. Maybe those were mailed then to Boeing. I don't know. Advertising executive, an advertising executive, a computer scientist, a geneticist, the president of the California Forestry Division. Huh. I know, but now I need to look into these scientists. Well, where's the dots? The dots are what? Universities. And I mean, what are the other similarities? Here, let's do this. This will be fun. I always forget we have AI now. Let's go like this. Let's ask ChatGPT. Hang on, let me paste it. Okay. Can you tell me what parallels are in the bombing? Let's see what that does. Okay, so it says, looking at the attacks as a whole, there are clear patterns. Okay, they weren't random. Okay, so the victims weren't random. 1978 to 1985, universities. 1985 to 87, computer industry. So he was disgruntled, they said, about modern technology. And then 1993 to 95, high-profile professionals. So they're literally grouped. Interesting. He stopped targeting people at universities after 85. He did that for 10 years. The victims represented academia and scientific research. And then in 85 through 87, this coincided with the rapid growth of personal computers. 93 to 95, these targets reflected industries Kaczynski believed symbolized technology, society, and industrial progress. That's crazy. Hey, White Lotus. Many bombs appeared to be gifts, books, thesis manuscripts, packages with legitimate postage, and brown paper parcels tied with string. The victim almost always activated the bomb by opening the lid, pulling a string, lifting a book, or opening a binder. Hello, Miss Jerry. The bombs were commonly mailed through the postal service, left in university buildings, left in parking lots, or left outside workplaces. Most victims were alone. The bombs generally exploded in offices, at home, in private workspaces, and in laboratories. This reduced the chance of multiple casualties and increased the likelihood the intended target would handle the package. Think about that. They didn't want mass casualties. Just the one person who handles that mofo. Bomb construction showed continuity. Across the years, investigators noticed recurring features. Handmade wooden components, nails and screws used as shrapnel, carefully crafted mechanical trigger systems, brown paper wrapping, homemade construction rather than commercially manufactured parts. Although the designs evolved, many unique construction techniques remained consistent. The victims, well, it depends. The goal was to have the intended recipient or someone nearby interact with the package. And then it says the attacks became increasingly lethal. In the early years, mostly injuries and bombs sometimes malfunctioned. And then he had his first fatalities in the 80s. Long gaps. There are pauses of months or even years. But when the attacks resumed, the same general type of package appeared. The bomb mechanics were similar. The choice of targets fits the same ideological pattern. The consistency helped investigators connect incidents, separated by long intervals. Thank you so much, Kelly Mack. It's like the CIA is using the same playbook on repeat. Thanks for covering this, Jay. Much love to you and all fellow tinfoil hat wearing truth seekers. Keep your head on a swivel, y'all. Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly Mack. And then it says geographic spread. The attacks occurred across the United States. Illinois, Utah, Tennessee, California, Washington, Michigan, and New Jersey. They thought there could be multiple bombers, but forensic similarities pointed to one person. Huh. And then David Kaczynski said, hey, that's my brother's writing. And it was all over. Once David Kaczynski said, that's my brother's writing, it was done. Thank you, Flo. Yeah, it's pretty wild, man. I did not know all of this either, and I'm learning as we go. But yeah, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. I think that's all I have for you, folks. I think that's all I have for you, folks. I'm just making sure. Yeah. I think so too, Harris. He was a kill guy for a 3-letter agency. Let's end our show on the poll here. We have, do you think Tim McVeigh was a victim of MKUltra? Yes, 49%. Not sure, 36%. And no, 15%. Crazy, crazy. I'll probably be back on my other channel later to hang out with you folks. Did I even show you the Chat GPT? Was I even showing that? I wasn't, was I? It was, Evelyn. It's wonderful to see you. Thank you, Aussie. Thank you, everybody, for all of the memberships. Truth Seekers Unite, Super Chats, Cash Apps, pizzas, all of it, all the support. Thank you, thank you. I appreciate you. Let's roll our credits and dance this one out. You guys enjoy the rest of your Monday. I will see you guys later. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit that like. Peace out.
It's a beautiful day to be an American, man.
I don't give a damn. I don't really care about you and your problems. I don't give a damn. You talk way too much. I have heard enough about you and your problems. I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn.
Course on declassification of federal secrets will come to order. Welcome, everyone. Without
Ski Utah.
You wanna be with me. You wanna feel something real, but I'm feeling differently. You're making plans to get to France, but don't wanna face the fact that I ain't got time for that. Staying up late, sleeping all day, dreaming about Cadillacs. Buying new shoes, hanging by the pool, sipping on Coke and Jack. Calling my phone when you feel alone, but I'll never call you back. 'Cause I ain't got time, I ain't got time, I ain't got time for that. I don't give a damn, I don't really care about you and your problems. I don't give a damn, you talk way too much. I have heard enough about you and your problems. I don't give a damn, I don't give a damn, damn, damn. 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 You're mad at me for not giving you comfort. You say that I'm away so much and now you don't feel the way you felt when we were younger. But that's okay for me, 'cause